Razor straight ahead and straight in. Oh, it's great in 8. Georgia wins it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Up top into the end zone. Caught. How did he make that one? Travis Hunter.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Pressure comes, he spins free, and he'll be knocked down. Ball is out. Texas falls on it. It's Vernon Broughton, who's had a monster night, who makes the recovery that should secure Texas's spot in the championship game.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
I haven't heard Restrepo's name in a while. That's where they're going. On a screen, Xavier Restrepo fumbled the football. Devin Gray is off to the races. Ward to beat. Scoop and score.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
McCree, the tight end, on the move, will pull it up and throw the sideline. It's intercepted by the guy that's been picked on all day. Christian Gray down the sideline. Gray still going, and he is on his way for a Notre Dame touchdown.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in, 365 Sports. It's Friday. It's championship weekend. We've got a big one tonight, UNLV and Boise State. But, Craig, we jump right into trouble in paradise. And by paradise, I mean Stillwater, Oklahoma.
That's its nickname, Paradise.
Yeah. Mike Gundy, according to Brett McMurphy and now Pete Thamel and a lot of people, that the board has met about his future there after this 3-9 year. And Pete Thamel is reporting that they have offered him a restructured contract that includes a pay cut, and the money that's coming out of the pay cut will be put towards rev share and NIL, something that I'm sure he doesn't like. And then there's an addendum to that report that if he doesn't take their offer, they will fire him for cause, which is where I get confused, because if you have cause to fire him, then why would you offer to keep him?
Yeah, that part of it, I don't know. I didn't see that exact verbiage in the various reports that I saw. But, folks, this is obviously a pretty big story. I mean, we're jumping right into it for a reason, because Mike Gundy has been a mainstay in Stillwater, Oklahoma for 2 decades, and he's been an institution there. I mean, for a lot of people who were babies that are now like college graduates, Mike Gundy's all they've ever known at Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's as long tenured as you can find in a game that turns over coaches like it's nothing these days. So the fact that we're having this discussion, I think, is kind of out of the blue, but at the same time, you knew that Oklahoma State was going to have to go to the drawing board and tweak some things, change some things, look at some things differently coming off the year that they had. But even still, don't think that ever really crossed my mind it would involve him and his positioning. Mm-hmm. Coordinators, certainly. We saw him, just a couple of days ago, fire both coordinators. And that was a move that I think was pretty predictable, but one that was needed and one that a lot of Oklahoma State fans called for throughout this season, especially Casey Dunn. That was a name that you heard a lot, and not ever in a good way. But, yeah, this is very interesting, because there's suddenly just a lot of stuff out there, and even a deadline that's been put out there in one of the reports. So you drew on Pete Thamel, and I saw his tweet, and I also saw one from Pete Nakos over at On3, and also from John Holcomb, who is a sports director out in Tulsa. And these three just kind of encapsulated, I feel like, what are all of the various things being thrown around, right? So you kind of touched on it, but from Pete Thamel, Gundy saying that he's the sources tell him that Gundy's in a standoff, right? That he's been given or talked to about a restructured contract. And that's like the one thing I think in all the reporting is like the steady part of this is like there's a restructured contract. Like that is 100%. He's been given a restructured contract to look at and sign, and he's being asked to sign it. And that, I think, across the board is also reporting that there is a pay cut involved with that. Now, Thamel's initial reporting says there weren't many other details, but then John Holcomb adds on that he's been offered a restructured contract for less money. That's all still holding. But then he adds that would also restrict his autonomy when it comes to hiring coordinators. Well, what did he just do this week? He fired both coordinators, so if it restricted his autonomy, that would mean it directly influences the two coordinators that he needs to now hire.
Yeah.
And also, that's taken away some power from the head coach after a long time that I don't know that he's going to like being told you're not going to have full say in who the coordinator hires are going to be. So that part of it is interesting. John Holcomb also adds, the sources tell him Gundy has a 5 p.m. deadline today to make a decision. So that kind of ramps things up just a wee bit.
Let me tell you what's going to happen at 5:01.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. If I know anything about Mike Gundy, it's that he's a measured, calm person.
Yeah.
And that he will wait this out. Now, I'll tell you what's really going to happen at 5:01. Oklahoma State's going to be looking for a new football coach.
Well, Pete Nakos also says the reduced contract part. So, like, again, that's unanimous across the board. But he also adds that it would come with assurances that he would go all in on NIL. And we know that's not been a favorite thing of his, the whole NIL side of college football. But that he would have assurances, or they would have assurances that he would go all in on NIL to the point that the dollars that were saved on his contract would be put towards that, as well as revenue sharing. That's according to Pete Nakos. And then he adds, if Gundy does not agree, Oklahoma State will terminate his contract and go look for a head coach. So that's where we are. Those three just kind of all had various details that I thought kind of encapsulated the whole story. So that's why I read all three of those off. So add all that together, and you've got what is a very interesting standoff brewing in Stillwater, Oklahoma right now with a pretty bulldog-headed head coach who's not probably taking kindly to threats, and also a school who's seemingly kind of fed up with the way things are currently working, and they want to change some things up, which is understandable. But I know that I've seen a lot of reaction to this in the past hour or so that's been out there, and I think I tend to lean with the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But I don't know what Oklahoma State maybe has been preparing for either. So this is very interesting, and I don't know if it will actually play out in the next couple of hours. But we've already seen 2 Big 12 head coaching changes. This, by far, though, would be the biggest whopper of them all because this is, like, again, an institution.
2 decades.
Yeah.
2 decades of him being the head coach there. And, you know, I already know the place I would pencil him in if he wanted to keep coaching for spite. Which if Jamie Chadwell leaves Liberty, I guarantee you that, I mean, and Mike would love it there.
Probably. Probably.
So,
I mean, he would have all the autonomy and be able to do basically whatever he wants, and he could wear whatever shirt he wants, and nobody would complain about it and all that. Yeah. I mean, if he wanted to spite up, that job is going to be there. But, you know, there's also the whole circling back. This isn't like Oklahoma State administration is just suddenly having problems with Mike Gundy. Like some of this there are still lingering effects from his playing them when it comes to even like the Tennessee job. That was years ago at this point, but like I've seen that get mentioned amongst just some of the other I guess flirting that he's done in the past with other schools, but that's the one that I think still is like a thorn in people's sides when it comes to Mike Gundy, was how flirtatious that was and all of that. So that's still kind of hanging out there, especially when all this starts to get dug up about his overall future. So, yeah, I think the man would clearly have options in front of him. But, wow, just the fact that we're even here talking about this, and it's not because they had like 4 bad seasons in a row, and it's like, all right, we got to get rid of Mike Gundy, and everybody's like, yeah, dude, like he's totally lost his magic. This is like you had a bad season, and it was really bad, but you've already fired your coordinators, and now you're going to have to give us some assurances or we're going to fire you. And that's a different ball game than we played in a long time.
Look, I think that one of the things that is obvious is that last year they got far. You know, they were in the Big 12 title game, but they've lost that thing twice now, right? And so it's like, play and lose in it, bad season, play and lose in it, even worse season. And the bad season after they lost to Baylor by an inch was due to a rash of injuries. You have injuries. A lot of times you have injuries that build up over 12 games. Well, theirs built up for about 2. Like they just had 2-3 games where everybody was getting hurt. So you're like, okay. And then, Spencer Sanders wasn't healthy and they kind of mucked up the quarterback thing there. And then instead of committing to finding another quarterback, you had a guy that was 1-to-1 TD to interception last year and thought that was all going to be fine again and didn't even try to upgrade. When you have Ollie Gordon, you've got 3 really good wide receivers on that roster at Oklahoma State, and you didn't upgrade the quarterback, and then when it didn't work out, you were like, well, I'm shocked. Well, there were people all over the place telling you that you had a quarterback that's in his 400th year and the previous 399 weren't really all that great. So,
yeah.
And you can go upgrade. Nobody's telling you to go spend the money that it would cost to get Cam Ward, but didn't even try. And that's going to make the money people mad. And he's got $25 million left on that contract. And I just think that this is floated out there so everybody knows, like, hey, have your agent set it up with us because today at 5:01 we've got an opening.
Yeah, I think that Gundy's certainly not done himself some favors at certain points. There's things that could have gone better. I think, though, he's a damn good coach. It does hurt, I think, that you've gone a couple decades and you've had immense amounts of success, but that there's been this inability to, really truly cash in and ride that wave. They've always been pretty good to really good to then bounce, after a year like last year, you come back to reality a little bit this year and have a down year that you now need to bounce back from and all of that. But it's been a pretty steady roller coaster, all things considered, especially compared to a lot of other programs. A lot of other programs would love the longevity and the consistency and all that. But I can also understand Oklahoma State fans want a little bit more hardware.
Yeah.
Some of the more top prizes. But I think we can all agree on this. Is Oklahoma State kind of not handling this the best, the way they're putting this out there, the ultimatum, hey, you better do this or we're going to fire you. And to your point, you said off the air, what's the for cause in this?
Yeah. So
what is the for cause?
If that part of it is true, then they've already decided to fire him. Because if you have a reason to fire him for cause, and that cause can't be losing because that's not how the contracts work, and it can't be just being, bristly, to put it mildly. That's, it doesn't say hey, you have to, be Ted Lasso, all around the place. You don't have to do that. So what do you have on him that would fire him for cause? That's, to me, pretty interesting. And because you're going to try not to pay the buyout, which may be, look, we're going to try to fire you for cause, meaning that we're going to go to court. You're not going to get your full buyout because we're going to negotiate this down. So whatever it is, this just smells to me like a fired coach. And they've already, if any of this was fine, then we wouldn't really know about it. It would just be The Oklahoma State board meets with Mike Gundy. They've decided to dedicate this much to NIL and revenue sharing, and we're going to pay more for assistance and all of that. But that's not what's happening. They're taking away money to give from him to give to players, and I don't think he likes that. And look, he's under contract, so he doesn't really have to like it. They've got an arrangement, a contract, so he doesn't have to like their proposal, and he can say no and go somewhere else. But the bottom line is, you're 3-9, dude. You don't really have all those other years don't matter much because this is now the first year of the 12-team playoff. You didn't even really try to make your team better in a way that other teams did, and you thought everything was going to be fine. Yeah, they're going to start asking some questions.
Yeah, and I could also understand where he just maybe thought they were going to have a really good team this year because everybody thought they were going to have a pretty good team this year. And then they got hit with a couple of injuries like Colin Oliver right there at the beginning, and that sort of just threw them for a loop they couldn't recover from. But, yeah, I don't understand the for cause part. It sounds, like you said, almost as if they've made up their minds, but then that also is puzzling in how they've approached this because they basically publicly put it out there. Everybody now knows what they're doing, and Mike Gundy has a pretty massive buyout, so he could just be like, middle fingers to you all, pay me my 20-ish million or whatever it is. And do they save any money in the long run? Because the money that he's not agreeing to take a pay cut for is going to then be used towards his buyout, right? So, I mean, either way, they're on the hook for some money. Unless he decides to agree to this and takes a pay cut, and then they take that money and they go use it on NIL. But, like, if he says no, they have to then fight with him over the for-cause thing. And if they win that, then great, but I don't see how they do because, again, like, if there's skeletons in the closet, how are you, like, blackmailing him with that, basically? Yeah. And then if you don't win that case, then you're on the hook for his entire buyout. So I don't know where you're saving money unless he decides, like, yeah, okay, but then you've made it so public, and he just does not strike me as the type of guy that's going to respond well to you blasting this out in public and saying that you've given him an ultimatum and he better agree or he's getting fired at 5 o'clock. So that's why some people are a little bit puzzled by how this is being handled on the part of Oklahoma State. And it's the curious part. The curious part to me is definitely the for-cause part of this, if that's the route they decide to go. But, yeah, various reports out there, and, they have discussed firing him for cause if he doesn't agree. Again, haven't seen any other details on that, but it looks like Oklahoma State's ready to make a big move if necessary, and it's going to depend on what Mike Gundy does in terms of a response here, and I'm assuming like right now and for the rest of this afternoon, and we'll see where that takes us ultimately. But, yeah, that is very interesting stuff out of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Dustin Archambault, who's a huge Oklahoma State fan in the chat, said, there's a donor that's willing to put $13 million towards his buyout.
Wow.
If that's true, I mean, holy cow.
Can y'all just imagine having that kind of money? Just, you know what? I want this coach out. I'm going to spend $13 million just to get him fired. That's incredible. What a life. Sorry, I'm just thinking about what that would be like to just be able to pull that trigger and just, you know what? I want him out. I'm going to go spend $13 million, but that's that life that I'll never know.
Yeah, that would be one thing to, like, you just go to the AD and be like, listen, me and the other rich a-holes, we're talking.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. We have a group chat. And in the group chat, we all decided that we would like to fire the coach. And you're like, well, it's buyout's $25 million. And you go, and?
Yeah, sure, okay, I'll take half, I'll just digest that.
Listen, I'll do 13 because I'm the biggest rich a-hole in the rich a-holes group chat, and then I'll get the rest of it from these guys. I know one guy's in for 6, so we're already there. You guys throw in $1 million, we'll call it a day.
It's like a tip, like each one of you give $1 million, and we'll be here. But I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they've got good intentions. Yeah, there are some a-hole boosters. There are also some good ones as well. I don't know what combination they're dealing with in Stillwater, but clearly there's one of them that's fed up based on that message that we just received. So, yeah, $13 million, if that's true, that says a lot about where the mindset is of some of the power brokers. And, again, he's been there a very long time. You've kind of seen what you've seen. I can understand where some people are coming from, especially those who, like, have the ability to say, here's $13 million to make a change. But you're going to need a lot more than that because that's like half his buyout, and then you're talking about an entirely new coaching staff, including a brand new head coach. So I'd be curious to know how much they've already kicked the tires on. Like if he says, all right, I'm out, and they're like, oh, crap, we didn't expect that. Like I know they've got to have an alternative plan for if that's the case to move quickly and go get their guy. But, man alive, what an interesting standoff brewing, and could be a massive story that changes the whole face of Oklahoma State football, or it remains as is. And the thing about that is, even if it does that, is that going to be the healthiest relationship if they agree to these terms? I mean, I don't think so, right? I mean, I know in the past he's had his issues here and there, but if you kind of given him this ultimatum, and now it's like, you already had pressure to win, but now it's like you have to win. There's no more 3 and 9s, or else there's boosters out there ready to cut $13 million checks to get your ass out of there. So, I don't know, man. This doesn't seem like it's going to really be all that great for Oklahoma State moving forward if it sticks together based on this afternoon. But maybe they're bigger people than I realize. I don't know, though, man. That doesn't sound good for Mike Gundy.
Yeah. Bill G, $20 super chat. By the way, the higher the dollar amount on the super chat, the more likely I am to say a stupid thing. So, or a thing you maybe hear me say, But no, but Bill G, thanks for the $20 super chat. Gundy is primarily responsible for the leaks. The for cause is something only Gundy has mentioned. Secondly, at his insistence since 2012, he's reported solely to the board and not the AD or president. So thank you, Bill G, for that super chat. Certainly appreciate it. And another 5-1. There's no doubt this will be an expensive episode. I don't see Gundy moving forward at OSU. So it's going to be like at this point when you've got the coach leaking stuff out and people leaking, it's over. Like, this is over. And if they do get back together, it's like that couple that, comes to you and is like, your friend goes here, the friend like this, we're done. It's finally, we're over. It's done. We're getting divorced. And you're like, all right, great. Okay, good. Let's start picking up the pieces and move on. And then like a week later, they're like, hey, we worked it all out. Like, no, you didn't. You didn't. So
yeah, it seems like a toxic couple right now, and you're just kind of waiting for them to say, no, really, it's over this time. But that's very interesting. Was it Bill that said that about the Gundy leaks there? Yeah. So thank you, Bill. And also, who was the other texter?
It's also Bill G.
Oh, okay, Bill. Appreciate you, Bill, on both accounts. But yeah, I mean, I could see where Gundy would be the one leaking that. And look, it's working, putting that part of the information out there, because here we all are, right, reacting to that part in particular about, like, what for cause could this be and what could they possibly have, and that's an interesting part of it to put out there. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens over the course of this afternoon and maybe even this weekend. I mean, we don't know for sure about that 5 p.m. deadline, but things not great in Stillwater. You can kind of see it from all angles, though, kind of being fed up with sort of the status quo, also wanting to not spur the man who's been there for 2 decades and led your program to pretty good heights.
Is an alum, is one of your best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, like all those things. You don't really want to burn that bridge, but, man, that's really interesting stuff, and I'm just kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop, whatever that is, whether it's Gundy agreeing to this or if it's Oklahoma State saying, all right, well, I guess we're going to start a coaching search now, but that's also going to be pretty expensive. So that donor will need to probably pony up more than $13 million, or find some other buddies that chip in with that.
I'm sure they have some.
I'm sure.
Like, they all sit together. And look, they used to have T-Boone Pickens, who they don't anymore. Yeah. I'm not sure how that works, or if his family, if they still do. I know there's probably a trust or an endowment from him. So it's maybe. Not that, he
has a foundation that still donates tons of money.
Yeah.
So what were you saying there?
So, like, you don't have that one guy that
trigger man, yeah.
Well, and part of it was like T-Boone and Gundy were kind of attached to the hip. And,
right.
That's been not there for a couple of years since he passed on. So I wonder. I will say this about T-Boone Pickens: he's responsible for the nicest media bathroom I've ever been in my life. Because his box is right there on that same level, and sometimes he has to use that bathroom, and he made it very, very nice.
That's smart stuff, right?
Yeah,
like, you know what? I'm gonna put my money where it counts. It's like, I'm gonna have a nice bathroom when I'm watching games. Like, that's why he was a very smart, successful man. He had his priorities straight. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously not with us and able to be a part of this particular power play, political struggle, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I'm curious to see kind of who emerges from this on the other side and what that looks like, and whether Mike Gundy's involved or not. But definitely some leaking going on. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to the point of Bill G these days, like how much of the narrative is written by social media, and people on either side putting out the certain details they want to kind of form the story. And you can just do it so quickly and in such real time nowadays. So it was very interesting over the last hour or so to see that wave. And that's why I also read those various reports, because you could tell, like, each guy, the 3 that I mentioned, all had another little detail that was a little bit different that combined for the clearer picture on what's going on. But, yeah, clearly, like, you get this and you get that, and I'm going to tell you this part, and put them all together, and there's your puzzle there. But there's still some pieces to fill in, obviously, some important pieces to fill in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matt Ritson, just a couple quick super chats so I don't forget them. Sacramento State's head coach is stepping down to take a job at Stanford, which is pretty well. He was on staff with Troy Taylor at Sacramento State, so now he's just following him there.
Yeah, you got pulled by Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck pulling that way. No, as soon as you said Sacramento State, there's that connection there, so that makes sense. And seeing, head coaches move on from positions to go take other positions. I mean, Gus Malzahn, the most high profile, and there's various reasons for why you would do that, but certainly seeing coaches at the quote-unquote lower levels making the jump up to the D1 is not or that level of power, for football, power to whatever you want to refer to it as. Everybody's got their different angle. You get the point. It seems like a move that makes some sense, and that most people would, or a lot of people would want to take advantage of, especially in this environment where it's just so when we talk to these head coaches, like being the head coach at Sacramento State, we wonder about the Big 12 or the ACC and the money gaps and all of that. I can imagine being the head coach is great, but you do wonder if there's so many other pitfalls to it that it's like, I'd much rather just go be an assistant coach like at Stanford than deal with being the head coach at Sacramento State, Yeah, absolutely. And there's also just opportunities that you just like, hey, that's the path that I want to take. So, good luck to him, and curious to see how all that works out with the Luck PR machine that was in effect last week with that big announcement that he was coming back, and just how he sort of works that. I'm curious to check in a year and see what Stanford's up to in that regard.
Yep. All right. Other than Mike Gundy, we have some other news to get to. Not a whole lot, but we'll probably talk about Mike Gundy again before the end of the show. And
probably, I would think so. Also, Sacramento State wasn't any good, so that also contributed to you wanting to leave. That had a lot to do with it, and should be mentioned as well that he had not been very successful. But I'm still very interested in the Stanford story nonetheless.
Yep. Brennan Sorsby, staying at Cincinnati, reached a deal to stay there with the school. Threw for 2,800 yards and ran for 445 more, 18 touchdowns, ran for 9 more. Had a good season, not a great season. Started out really well, and then Cincinnati hit the skids. But I think another year there benefits him more than trying to go start again somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, just the wording involved with that. Agreeing to a new deal.
Yeah, that's
is
very
something
professional. Yeah, very
professional wording there. I don't know how to really take that, but it's just where we are. So, to see that was initially what was jarring to me. Wasn't surprised to see him coming back to Cincinnati. He was a really good player for them, more so during the first half of the season than the second half of the season. That candle kind of got blown out with the nice start, and then in the end, you lose 5 straight games to miss a bowl game. So you had 5 cracks to win one more game, and you couldn't do it. So, the Brennan Sorsby hype kind of fizzled out alongside just Cincinnati as a whole down the second half of the season. But that's great news for Scott Satterfield because he is a really good player, and I don't know what their next steps are, but that's a big first piece of the puzzle because I do think he can win them some games, and he proved that earlier in the year. But they've clearly got a lot of other upgrades to do. And, the most interesting part about that is the basically agreed to a new deal verbiage there. I would be curious to know what kind of suitors he did have. I mean, we're getting to the point now where it's portal season, and it's also going to be like big-time quarterbacks moving around season. And I would think, at least in the first half of the year, Brennan Sorsby would have been a name that would have been a really hot commodity. But now either that's fizzled out or he just really wants to be in Cincinnati. So good for the Bearcats. That's a big land, but I definitely thought at one point that he might find himself joining the John Mateers of the world and at least flirting with the possibility. And I guess he always still could because I don't know how ironclad those contracts are. But if he stays, then that's really good for Cincinnati. That's a good anchor for next year's team.
Yep. Bronco Mendenhall, former coach at BYU and West Virginia, is now the new Utah State head coach, and of course New Mexico. That's where he was. He's gone. I'm curious. The quarterback in New Mexico and the running back are both really good players. They're also in the portal. Do they follow him to Utah State, or they try to get bigger than Utah State?
Well, they could be following their new OC to Utah. That could be, or they could be following their OC to his new digs in Utah. That would be a place that would make a lot of sense for Devin Dampier, the quarterback, who I remember us talking about because they had like one of the first games of the year, and he was like, he flashed, and I forget who it was against. It was like a big game though, and I remember like seeing Devin Dampier and watching him those first couple games, and he was pretty fun. So, I think there's a strong possibility he could be heading to join up with Jason Beck, or he could, follow Bronco Mendenhall. So it looks like he's going to have some options. I don't know who his favorite coach is. So if he has a preference, he's got a couple of different places he could land, or he could be like, I'm done with all these guys. I want to see what's out there and see like who else comes calling. We'll see what the portal holds for him and his other teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, to your point, Jason Beck is the new OC at Utah. And I would not be surprised to see 3 guys from there, wind up, or if not more, wind up with Jason Beck or whatever, because Utah is a better upgrade than Utah State. Obviously, you're playing at the P4 level. So, but yeah, I think it's a really good hire. They had a really good offense at New Mexico this year, really dynamic, and they need to shoot some life into that side of the ball because it was all built around whether Cam Rising was healthy or not the last 2 years. And, really because they didn't have that built around anything other than Cam Rising, they kind of squandered 2 years at Utah.
Yeah, I think, first of all, going back to Bronco Mendenhall, and you keep mentioning the word Utah, like, cool reunion for him, go back to the state of Utah. So, like, that's the first thing that jumped to mind when I saw that headline. It's like, oh, Bronco Mendenhall's back in the state of Utah. But, yeah, I think you saw the Kurt Cignetti blueprint at Indiana, right, where he brought a bunch of his James Madison guys over and then potpourried that in with transfer players from elsewhere and what Indiana already had on staff. So, yeah, I think there's a strong possibility that Bronco Mendenhall could take some of his New Mexico guys and take them to Utah State. But at the same time, also the possibility that Jason Beck would do that as well. I know with Utah's quarterback room that they had it wasn't a depth thing, it was an experience thing. Like, they had a bunch of quarterbacks, but a lot of those guys were young, and you just relied so heavily on Cam Rising that we saw what that turned into, and you had to turn to a couple of those other guys. They just weren't quite ready, especially to reach anywhere near his peak level when he was healthy. But, yeah, I think anything's up for grabs. So if you're a New Mexico football fan, I mean, you're waiting for the roster to just basically tatter and fall apart at this point with a couple of guys moving on. But, yeah, Devin Dampier, not surprised to see that as all, given all of the coaching movement. And I think he'll have some suitors and, big shakeup there for Utah. That was needed. That offense was just bad. And what just a bad year it was overall. I think the refreshing thing is that you just don't really have to worry about the whole Cam Rising, will he, won't he be available problem any longer. I know he hasn't officially said, but it's pretty clear to thank you, but we need to we gotta go move on, man.
Also, sometimes you got to save people from themselves.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I think the Cowboys did that with Tony Romo.
Yeah, probably.
I think they did because, they're like, Tony, every time you get hit, you get hurt now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to get better.
Yeah.
You're not going to Benjamin Button this thing and age in reverse. You got to do it. And I think that Cam Rising, it's pretty clear, he's not, ready for contact anymore.
Right. And I think the most interesting part of that for me was the whole discussion that I saw kind of begin with Utah fans in the comments and the reports of the Jason Beck hire, which, okay, first of all, he's a BYU guy because, of course, he is, right? There's just the crossover between those two programs is insane. I can't imagine there's any two programs that have more coaching crossover than those two programs right there. But that's also what leads to such familiarity and love and hate, and the holy war being the high stakes that it is. But I wonder, with Morgan Scalley being the head coach in waiting, of how much say he has. And I don't remember where.
Probably a lot.
Well, you would think so, but do you know? That's the thing is I saw somebody bring that up, and I can't remember. It's just a random comment of, well, do you think Scalley has any input? Because he has been named coach in waiting again for the second time, and there are still lingering questions about Kyle Whittingham and how long he's in the saddle, and even about next year of whether he's going to be back. I don't know that that's even 100% known, but clearly he's got to be having some say because he's making these coordinator moves. So, yeah, I'm curious of what the the percentages are of how much is this Kyle Whittingham driving the bus on who the OC is and how much of it is also Morgan Scalley having input. Because if it's 99% Kyle Whittingham, well, that will seem to indicate he's back next year. But if Morgan Scalley's also got like 45% or 50% of the say, well, that seemed to indicate we're getting pretty close to where this thing's going to finally move his direction and he's going to take over the program. But so that part of it to me of who's the more involved here is just telling about maybe the near-term future of Utah football. And I think that's a lot of interest to people.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing before Grayson Grunhafer in the next segment. By the way, thank you, Kim, for the super chat. Jacob Rodriguez, all Big 12 linebacker, coming back to Tech. So that's
great news,
That's great news. It's great news for Shield Wood for sure to have that guy back as well. This is Jake Dickert, coach at Wazoo, on where he feels things are with John Mateer right now and his possible departure for the transfer portal.
That the roster retention, like what is that process like and how do you kind of go about that?
So I meet one-on-one with every kid after the year. I don't know what other head coaches do. We talk about their strengths. We talk about things they need to work on. They give me tons of feedback on their coaches, on myself, on our program. I love those times, but unfortunately, there is now an extreme business side to those conversations. And trust me, I've been Zooming and communicating with families because I think the one thing the second parties are doing are really getting to families, probably maybe over the kids nowadays. So I just have really good, hard, honest conversations. Some of them go the way you want. Some of them you're really worried about some of those players being ready for what's next. And, you just got to keep navigating a, process and trying to figure out what's best for us.
What have those talks been like with John and kind of where's his head at right now?
Those are private conversations. They've been really good. We've done an amazing job of putting together, a package for John that I think is fair, and he knows his value here. He knows how much he's loved, and I think it really means something for him to be here. Like I don't take that for granted. I also take a step back and want to mentor him, want to help him, want to navigate him through this, and the talks have been really, really positive, and we'll continue to navigate that as they go.
So there you go. I mean, I'm glad for Jake that he feels comfortable, but the Wolves are going to be at the door for a long time.
I mean, the Wolves are already hanging out inside the house.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already gotten to the family, as you could hear him basically say that, which I don't know. Some of that's just, I don't know, just kind of gross, but also understandable because it's just business as well. But I think the people that are on the up and up, that's great. And then you wonder about the shadier characters. So hopefully the Mateer family is dealing with people on the up and up because they have a real deal business opportunity in front of them where he stands to make a lot of money next year, whether he stays in Pullman or he goes and follows his former OC to Norman, Oklahoma, which I wouldn't hate that because I saw a lot of John Mateer this year, and he's a very dynamic and fun player, and he obviously plays very well in Arbuckle's system, and they had a lot of success together. And Oklahoma also could use a quarterback because Jackson Arnold's officially in the portal, which I guess you guys probably talked about that on Wednesday.
Yeah,
I was out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised to see that. I mean, it seemed like that's sort of where it was going, and one of those where it seemed healthier for both sides to just kind of start over and to break up and then just begin new relationships. So good luck to Jackson Arnold. I hope he finds a spot where they can unleash all the tools that gave him the high rating and all the success that he had back in high school. But yeah, Jake Dickert, I think saying what he can say and what he needs to say, but also what else can you say? I mean, what else can you say? We're trying. We've talked to him a bunch. We've talked to so-and-so, and we've put together a nice package. And, I mean, you're not going to put the details out there. It wouldn't be prudent to do that. So I kind of feel for Jake Dickert, honestly. I mean, the guy just lost his OC, very well could lose his quarterback. It's not an enviable position to be in that Washington State chair at the moment, just with all that he's had to deal with over the last couple of years, and probably feeling like it's a lower percentage than it is a higher one that you're going to lose your star quarterback because of the forces you're battling against. So it would be great for the pure love of college football that he came back to Pullman, Washington. But I think we also all understand the reality we live in now where it's a different ball game, and it would not be surprising at all to see him head to Norman, Oklahoma for $2 million next year or to any other number of similar spots for seven figures. That's the game we play now. So, yeah, John Mateer, a very interesting domino to watch. He's right there at the top of the list of the biggest transfers, and certainly the quarterbacks. He's right there in that mix for the top guys as well. So that is going to be a big-time decision, and I feel, like I said, for Jake Dickert, because they're having to battle a lot of headwinds right now, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Grayson Grudhafer, Sikkim 365 on Baylor's recruiting haul and what that means going forward. This is 365 Sports.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Another so-so pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait, there's Marco's! Our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Don't miss our best price deals during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. This month, save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new Rams. Shop our great selection of inventory in store or online today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Welcome back. Sorry about that. Little blip happens, but it's maybe because sometimes the computer cannot handle the uncontrolled awesomeness of the guest we have. That's the lead I'm going to give for you. Grayson Grunhafer, SicEm365.com. It's signing day, but it's really kind of signing week for a lot of people because you have the ones that kind of linger and then you see. But Baylor, am I right to say they didn't lose a one that they thought they were going to have on signing day? Then no flips happened to them, right?
Correct. Yeah, they didn't flip anyone, and nobody flipped from the Baylor recruiting class. So, I mean, overall, it was a very good day, and that was what was expected going into the day. There was a lot of speculation about, could Baylor add this prospect or this prospect? But at the end of the day, I think there was a lot of conversations with the staff that probably just led them to thinking, after all this momentum, this 8-4 season, there's going to be a lot of expectations next year. And I think they're kind of gearing up in the transfer portal to fully take advantage of the roster that they're going to have coming back next year. And I think that's what led them to just rolling with the signings that they got. And this is a really, really good class.
Grayson, how much of a lesson do you think Dave Aranda learned from 2 years ago? They won the Big 12 championship, and they just kind of sat on their hands when it came to the transfer portal and feeling like they could just run it back basically, despite losing Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie and guys of that nature. They know better now, right? Like, how geared up are they? You kind of referenced it there to go, okay, we got it. It doesn't stop here. We got to continue this momentum and make moves.
Absolutely, Craig. And I think, this goes back to the beginning of this year, right, where they corrected the NIL situation. They corrected the transfer portal evaluation situation as well. Two parts that were very lacking, especially after the Big 12 championship season, in which you just, they kind of sat back and were relying on development. And that development didn't fully come through, obviously, in 2022. And so now they're where they're at. But I think there's definitely been a lot of learning throughout this process. And also just, it's a changing environment of college football. It feels like every single year. And so now you got 105 roster spots. You got, walk-ons are basically feeling like, some conversation about that basically becoming extinct. There's just a lot of things that change every single year. And I think staying up to date with those things is really important. If you fall behind in those areas, it can cause you to really lose out on what could be a special year. And I think Baylor knows, they returned some really key pieces. They have a really good recruiting class. They built momentum from this 8-4 run. And now I think they feel like they're going to be real players for a lot of very high-profile prospects and guys who really fill needs for them on this roster going into the 2025 season.
Another change in 2024 that I'm really glad they made was having the signing day press conference. He had not been doing that, and I think it's just an important thing to do and a good thing to do and some easy PR, quite frankly, especially when you're riding a positive wave like they are. Was there anything that he said about a particular prospect or just anything in general that stood out to you from that signing day press conference?
It was really cool to see that. I think obviously with them being on campus for, bowl season that's getting set to gear up, I think with signing day being earlier, I think those things probably played a part in making this pretty easy to happen. And so, yeah, it was great to hear from him. He talked about a lot of different things. I think the things that really stand out to me are the bigger picture things as opposed to just individual prospects. So, him talking about Keenan Hall and what he's meant, but also what Jake Spavital's offense meant for this program and their ability to recruit the DFW area. Those two pieces coming together really gave them a great shot at landing quite a few high-profile prospects, especially offensive prospects, which they absolutely had to address during this recruiting class. Outside that, I think it was just typical things. He got asked about the transfer portal and didn't really give too specific of an answer. He mentioned like 5 positions. I'm of the opinion that they're probably going to end up taking, 10 to 15 prospects. So he didn't dive too deep, but the ones that he did mention were the ones that I feel like we've talked about already, whether it's wide receiver, offensive line, the trenches in general there. And then, of course, the secondary, which they're losing some pieces, but I think really they're just trying to get better, right? It's not so much that they're losing, everyone in the secondary. I think more so it's about, how do you add to fill in for those pieces, but also how do you add more talent to that room and more kind of impact players? I think those are kind of all the questions that he mentioned, and those positions sound pretty on point for me. But I would also say, the way he mentioned it, they're going to take more than just, 5 or 6 guys, which is kind of what it felt like he was saying.
Grayson, what do you expect the portal to focus on?
I think it's some of the things that, Aranda mentioned, obviously. Wide receiver is a big one. I mean, this depth chart is pretty wild to see everything that they're going to lose. 5 seniors, the guys that they have returning, essentially, it's Josh Cameron and then a bunch of unproven guys. And, Jaden Porter's expected to take a big step forward, but he's going to be a true sophomore and hasn't played a lot. So they're going to have to find a lot of key pieces. They're going to have to use NIL extensively, I think, to fill out this room. I think they're probably going to have to take like 3 guys at least, even with the freshman class that they have coming in. Outside of that, you're looking at right tackle where Campbell Barrington was. They also lost Alvin Ebasele. So I think there's definitely an open spot or 2 on the offensive line and 1 starting spot specifically that's up for grabs. On the defensive side, you look at the edge position where they lose Steve Linton and Garmin Randolph. They're going to have to spend NIL there as well. I think they're going to try to find a nose tackle to replace Linus Noel, potentially a star, depending on what they want to do with Carl Williams. Do they want to move him to field safety? And then I think just in general, find another cornerback to replace Lorando and find another safety to just kind of add depth to the room and potentially a starter there as well. So lots of needs, but I think they're very focused needs, which is really important. They don't really have to go out and just get some guys just to have them on the roster. They're really going out and trying to find, key impact starters at a few positions.
So what are your hopes as far as bowl season and what we find out come Sunday?
Well, I think the ones that are trending right now, the Texas Bowl seems to be the most likely one. I've been of the opinion that the Pop-Tarts Bowl makes a lot of sense as well. Baylor hasn't played in either of those games for, a while now. So I think both of them would make sense. Obviously never have played in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, but it was named something else when they went and played North Carolina there.
Russell Athletic.
Right. So now it's Pop-Tarts Bowl.
It was named the boring, stupid bowl who didn't give us anything. And now it's like one of the most fun ones.
Yeah. Right.
It was like boring and stupid.
Yeah, I went to that game as well, but this one would be real. Like, that's the one that I've been wanting. I think they do a great job with promotions. I love Pop-Tarts, so I would go in there and eat a bunch of them just, before that game. So that's the one that would be fun. Obviously, that would be against an ACC team, so you're likely looking at Clemson, Miami, or SMU. For that game if Baylor got into that, most likely. And then if you look at the Texas Bowl, you're looking at probably LSU. The other names that have kind of been thrown around are A&M and Arkansas, but A&M was just in that game. So I really think that's probably going to be LSU in that game. And those are the 2 that I feel like are the most likely for Baylor. I mean, the teams above them are going to fight it out for the Alamo Bowl, a college football playoff bowl. And then Baylor's kind of that next team there that I think could get into one of those 2 big bowls. I know the Liberty Bowl has been mentioned as well, which would also be against an SEC team, likely an A&M or an Arkansas, probably maybe even Oklahoma in a certain situation. So for me, if you get into Pop-Tarts Bowl or Texas Bowl, it's a great situation, but I would prefer the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
If Garrett had to watch LSU get beat by Baylor, he would have a conniption, man.
I've been waiting for this to come full circle. Ooh. Like since 2019, Matt Rule, Aranda, and all of them have derailed LSU. Like there's a whole thing, and it would come full circle from Aranda winning the championship to getting it back on track and beating LSU in Houston. I am mentally prepared for this debacle.
Man, now that's what I want. Now that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. But no, very much looking forward to seeing what that holds, but it should be a good bowl game regardless, and a pretty good opponent after they finished 8-4. So all Big 12 awards came out earlier this week, and I know like the program kind of said, well, hey, what about Sawyer Robertson? I mean, he's had this great year, and maybe they felt a little bit disrespected. Texas Tech, everybody else is doing the same thing with their guys, like Joey McGuire, why is Taj Brooks not first team, blah, blah, blah. So that's what you get during these award seasons. But did anything pop out to you as far as the all Big 12 awards? I thought that like Bryson Washington was going to get the Newcomer of the Year award, and I think Jordan Tyson took that one instead. But anything pop out to you as far as those accolades go, and any snubs, if you will?
I mean, two big ones. The first one is Sawyer Robertson. I mean, come on now. I mean, the guy, he didn't even get an honorable mention. And some of the names in there that did get honorable mentions, I just don't feel like they did as much for their team as Sawyer Robertson did this year, especially once he took over as the starting quarterback. He should not be the first team guy. That obviously should be Shador. But I mean, second team, I don't see how anyone could have a problem with that, with the way they finished this season, operating the best offense in the Big 12. That's pretty, I don't know. That's pretty crazy to me. The other thing that stood out to me is we've talked about Dave Aranda a lot. We've talked about, some of the things in the past that, maybe didn't quite work out, but him being defense coordinator this year, but also coaching linebackers and then having two linebackers on first team all Big 12 is special stuff. And one of those guys was, let's just be honest about it. They had a JUCO guy that they brought in, which JUCOs, that's very hit or miss. And they didn't just hit. KT Thomas is one of the best linebackers in the Big 12, if not the best, honestly. He's definitely up there. And then a guy, Matt Jones, who I swear, Baylor fans have not been high on him at all for a long time. And he's had his ups and downs. For this guy to have the kind of year that he just did, for him to develop the way that he did and for him to just consistently make plays, it's super impressive. And I think with this linebacker class that they have coming in with KB Winston, Caleb Burns, Trent Spence, they have a great opportunity here to continue to develop that position and really turn it into a big positive, which under Aranda, for the most part, it has been, but trying to get back to where they were when they had Terrell Bernard and Dylan Doyle, they finally did that this year, and now it's just about sustaining that.
Grayson, do you see them going after a backup quarterback type? Because DeQuan Finn, should he get his waiver, is probably likely going to go try to find a place he'll start.
I do. I think that would be smart. I know there's been a lot of questions about, can Nate Bennett be the backup quarterback? Can Edward Griffin be the backup quarterback? And I understand those questions, but those two guys are very young. And really, I don't think it's a slight to them at all by saying, yeah, Baylor should go out and get an older guy, because again, the hopes next year are to win a Big 12 championship for Baylor and to make a college football playoff. And so if something did happen with Sawyer Robertson, I think it would be wise for them to have an older guy who's played a lot of games maybe, but just it hasn't all, maybe come together for that guy, but maybe injuries or something like that. I think finding a guy like that could be really important. I don't necessarily think they're going to take a young guy, but I do think that looking for a guy with experience, if they can find the right one, would be a very smart move and makes a lot of sense.
Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com with us every Friday. Grayson, enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That is Grayson Grundhafer. Hafer. You know what? You say it enough, you're going to say it wrong. But Craig, a couple things before we take a break, and then we have Max Olson at 4:05. One, Rich Rodriguez will be one of the interviewees for the West Virginia job.
That is interesting.
Two, and we found this out during the break, but Wisconsin has targeted Kansas offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes for the same position on their staff. They let go of Phil Longo. They were trying to run the spread up there. Sometimes, the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are always the best when they're running the ball and they have this lethal defense. There's never been a team, even with Ben Roethlisberger, that really threw it all that, was based around the pass. There's always been a running team. I think the same way with Wisconsin. You win at Wisconsin by power running and having a quarterback who can make you some key passes in key spots. Ironically, Russell Wilson, the best quarterback to play at Wisconsin in the last 10, 15 years as well there. But Jeff Grimes in the wide zone, I think that works up there pretty well.
Yeah, I think it would be a nice fit, and I don't think Kansas fans would cry too many tears if he were to go and take that job. The first half of the season, he was a guy who they could not rush out of town quickly enough, and then they had the nice turnaround in the second half of the season. And, he was able to kind of change some of those opinions, and they got on a great run. But then just so abruptly it ended with that blowout loss to Baylor, where the offense wasn't able to really muster a lot due to turnovers and things like that. So ultimately that all combined to create a situation where it wasn't like, God, get him out of here. But it's like, all right, if he wants to leave, it's no sweat off our backs, right? So at least you saved a little bit of face by the end. to where it wasn't like completely toxic because you weren't having success. You had a little bit of a run of fun and got people excited. But, yeah, I don't think they're going to worry too much if Lance Leipold has to go hire another new OC, and they're due for a lot of big changes on that side of the ball anyways. So for Grimes, I think, nice up and down at times outing there in Lawrence for 1 year, but going to the Big Ten, going to try to help out Luke Fickell and try to get that offense going. And the style that you mentioned of which is Wisconsin football, running the wide zone, I think really fits them well, and he would be a nice fit there. So I think that would make a lot of sense for Wisconsin and for Jeff Grimes as well. And then the Rich Rodriguez thing, I mean, we talked about getting back with your ex just a little while ago. This is like J-Lo and Ben Affleck, though. This is like you weren't together for like 20 years, and now you're trying to rekindle this thing after you had like 2 other marriages and divorces and like 3 kids, and now you're like, man, we were good back then, weren't we? Like, let's get this magic back together. That's what that feels like. And you know what? I hope it works out better than J-Lo and Ben Affleck if they go that route, because that fizzled out again. But that's immediately what comes to mind, and I can understand the appeal because he gets West Virginia. Like, that's so much a part of the West Virginia pull when you hear their fans talk about it, is just somebody that gets them because they don't feel like every other program, right? They're unique, and so he definitely gets them. He definitely brought them a lot of success back in the early 2000s. And I don't know how I feel about that all happening again 20 years later, but I at least understand the kicking of tires and why you would at least approach the idea if you were Ren Baker. And I would imagine there's also some other floating out there that's being done as well. There's a lot of that during the coaching carousel. But, yeah, I did not expect to see that on my 2024 bingo card. Yeah. And so here we are. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
Here's the thing. If you follow the scenario, the marriage scenario that Craig gave you about Ben and J-Lo, you know who doesn't want you to do that? Your adult kids.
Yeah, right.
Like there's like if my parents have been divorced for like 25 years and then say, hey, listen, I know that we've been married a couple times, but really it was just mistakes. Be like, please don't do this. Just don't. Like, I'm glad that you guys are talking. We can have Christmas together, but let's not pretend. Let's just get rid of the rigmarole. But
yeah,
you
kind of see the writing on the wall already. But
oh, yeah, no, you guys are going to be so much better together now that you're old.
Yeah. Now that you're not in your 20s and it's your peak of success. No, I think that there is definitely some toxic elements that could be had there, but I do at least understand the kicking of the tires, like I said, that very loose term there.
Yeah, I get it, and he's done well at Jack State, so you got to give him some credit for that. When we come back, Max Olson, ESPN.com, the real portal king, Max Olson. This is 365 Sports.
The Baylor Club, a proud partner of Sikkim 365 and 365 Sports. Excited to offer listeners, that is you, deals, exclusive deals at the club. Ask for the Sikkim 365 membership application, receive 2 months membership free, or stop by the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off MLK and I-35 for a complimentary Sikkim 365 VIP tour. You could also book a membership lunch by calling 254-710-8106. These offers are available exclusively through Sikkim 365 Sports, so make sure you mention that. A proud partner, the Baylor Club, inside McLean Stadium off I-35, Sikkim 365 and 365 Sports. Listeners, exclusive deals at the club. Ask for the Sikkim 365 membership application to receive 2 months of free membership, or stop by the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium on MLK off I-35 in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak and Max Olson, ESPN.com. The real portal king. Max, between coaching changes, the portal, the CFP, when was the last time you weren't looking at a screen?
Oh, I heard there was signing day on Wednesday. Is that true?
Yes.
Did I miss that?
Yeah.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot right now. I have not. Can I say like I've had 8 hours of sleep a night? No, that has not been the situation this week. And next week, this week was kind of like the warm up week for the portal. Next week is going to be pure chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's actually open, and there can be movement. Before we get to the portal, though, what are your thoughts on the standoff as Pete Thamel reported is going on between Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State?
Yeah, this is it's a little bit surprising. I think there was a board meeting set for this morning, and I think the expectation was that he was going to the board to get them to sign off on. He's got to go hire two new coordinators, right, after firing Casey Dunn and Brian Nardo. And so I think the expectation was going to the board to kind of get approval on that. And now I think this has. It gets the sense this has turned into a very contentious situation where it seems that they are wanting to make some changes to his contract and some reductions and need him to make some concessions on that stuff to move forward. And, the threat of firing him with cause I guess is out there, which I think, it's about $25 million that they would owe him if they fired him without cause. And so, yeah, that creates a very sticky situation, and I think one that it's honestly surprising. I mean, I'm stunned that Oklahoma State was as terrible as they were this year. I mean, I really just assumed.
Well, we're going to have to revisit that with Max, as his line clearly cut out there, and good amount of static, so we'll try and get him back on, but sounded like he was in a pocket where signal was shoddy at best, so we'll try and re-effort that to see if we can get him on and finish his thoughts on the Mike Gundy situation.
Mike Gundy was just trying to interfere, I guess.
Is that what it was?
So, yeah, go ahead, Max.
Oh, my God, did I say too much?
No.
Did someone just came to stop me, huh? Where'd you lose me?
Somewhere around $25 million in firing for cause.
Yeah, and look, I think that in the recent history of college football, trying to fire your coach for cause ends up being very expensive and costly in other ways. So I'd be surprised if they went that route, but it certainly has turned into a very contentious situation for the winningest head coach in program history, a guy who is coming off his first losing season in forever. I was stunned that they went 3-9. Really did not see that coming. They got to make some I think it'll be almost a brand new staff if he comes back next year, but I think now there's a real question as to whether they are going to run it back with him.
I mean, can you, after all this, can you?
That is a hard question. Like, I think if both sides are kind of preparing to battle on that, like how do you kind of settle that and everyone move forward and just pretend that didn't happen. So I think that's a tough thing. And, he's the third longest tenured coach in college football. Usually these don't end great. I would have thought it would end better than this. And I'm sure Mike Gundy does not want to go out 3-9. I mean, that's not representative at all of his legacy and his tenure there. So you hope that they can kind of patch things up there. But yeah, that things are in a very questionable place at the moment.
Max, a couple of other jobs that are actually open in the Big 12. Just curious your thoughts. UCF loses Malzahn as he takes that FSU OC job, and then West Virginia departs with Neil Brown. And I've seen both programs. I think this is just kind of how it works during the carousel as you long for what you had that was successful before. So there's pockets of UCF fans that are like, Scott Frost deserves another chance, and there's this report that I don't know how much validity there is to it that West Virginia will at least talk to Rich Rodriguez. But do you have any kind of a feel or a thought on either one of those programs and what they might look at or might do moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the UCF situation has kind of flown under the radar a little bit, maybe just because of the way that Gus Malzahn left for Florida State. I think that's a good job in the Big 12. I think, obviously with 16 teams, it's gonna that's a program where you got to be able to do well in the portal and retain your talent and eventually build towards something. And I think that's a good job. I think that will be attractive, and I can see them going in a bunch of different directions. I did see the talk of, hey, can we talk to Scott Frost and kind of revive the magic of that tenure. Obviously, it's been a while now since Scott Frost was a head coach or even coaching in college football. West Virginia, I mean, wouldn't be that surprised if they did talk to Rich Rodriguez or I think Barry Odom makes sense for that one too, but Barry Odom's probably going to be up for a few of these jobs. I think that's a tough job, and finding, I think Neil Brown handled everything well there. They just didn't win enough games. So, I could see people sort of feeling like, hey, we need someone that's really familiar with this environment, and Rich Rodriguez makes a lot of sense. But I'm interested to see where Ren Baker goes with that job, and can you find someone who can, really get that thing, raise the standard there beyond just being a bowl team.
Max, what do you think about Bill Belichick potentially to UNC?
A little more believe it when I see it. I mean, I think that I think he would be the first coach in the history of football to run from the NFL to college football to live in the NIL world. That would be pretty surprising. I think that, it does kind of make you wonder, what's going on with that job? Who are the front runners there? Are they getting some no's from the initial people they're talking to, or kind of is that a pretty wide open search at this point? No, I'd be surprised. I think Bill Belichick's probably gonna, if you wait a few more weeks, he'll probably be able to pick among a couple NFL jobs, I would imagine. That one surprised me, no doubt.
What did you think about the comments? I don't know if you saw them or not, from Jake Dickert about John Mateer, and they're just trying to hold on to him. And I know a lot of college coaches are kind of dealing with that right now. But I guess a better way to ask this would be, how high up the list of best players are you expecting in the portal would John Mateer be as far as the most attractive players that you think people will be coming after once that opens up officially?
Yeah, we did a piece this week on ESPN.com breaking down 25 quarterbacks to watch ahead of this portal cycle. And I led the entire piece with John Mateer because I think when you talk to personnel people who need a quarterback, you talk about the staffs who've kind of like if you know your guy's graduating or you just don't have one, these guys have kind of spent the past month or so kind of watching tape of everybody and trying to kind of build their board of who we want to get. And John Mateer's high on the board for a lot of people. He's just a very talented dual threat player, explosive in the run game, still has room to grow as a passer. But I think, everyone you talk to, just the leadership and the moxie, I talked to Eric Morse about him earlier this season. He compared him to Baker Mayfield just in terms of his personality and the way he connects to a team. So there's a ton of people that would love to pick up John Mateer if he hits the portal. And guys, I think this is just the way this works now. And it's kind of going around the country everywhere. Like you basically have to, renegotiate and re-sign your guys every year. That's just kind of how this is right now, especially as we head into revenue sharing. And so, I'm sure that's frustrating for Washington State fans to feel like, hey, people are trying to tamper with our really good quarterback after you just lost Cam Ward to Miami. But that's just kind of how it is now. When you've got a great one, then you're going to have to kind of fight to hold on to him.
Max, is there a shocking portal entry for you yet? We haven't gotten to that point, have we?
Ooh, good question. There's been, by my count, we're at about 400 scholarship players that have officially gone in the portal, and most of those are grad transfers. I wouldn't say there's been a lot of like quarterback position, for example, like really not any shockers there. You kind of knew Jackson Arnold and Miller Moss and Connor Wegman were all guys that, had gotten benched at times this season. You kind of knew that there's probably looking for a fresh start a little bit. I think on Monday, when you can have the underclassmen go in, I think there will be some shockers. There's some I've heard that I'm just sort of like, no way. I'm not trying to tease you guys. I'm just saying like this is, you kind of hear a lot of names get thrown around and you're like, would they really actually go in? Like, obviously, I think that this cycle is probably going to have more of that just because of there's teams that have more money to spend now. And if you've got a need, you want to go get someone who's worth the money. And so I think once the underclassmen can officially go in on Monday morning, you're going to see some guys go in that it might not make sense, but those guys are going to go in and make a lot of money.
Well, looking forward to seeing all that just chaos brewing and starting to unfold on Monday. Should be a wild week. Max, we do have games, conference championship games this weekend, and I'm sure as you've seen and maybe even been involved with yourself, lots of talk about the playoff and who deserves what and this and that. Just what have been your thoughts on seeing this playoff scenario unfold with the 12 teams? We knew there was some foreshadowing. There could be some issues like this with the 12-teamer, but do you still like it? Do you now maybe have a change of heart? Where do you view kind of the postseason and how it's shaping up right now?
Well, I like the format of 12. I think that's been, the thing that Bob Bowlesby and everybody kind of pitched when they came up with this idea was that you would have more fan bases engaged in November and more games that matter in November. And I think that definitely was the case. I think that's positive. But inevitably, here we are with this situation of, 2-loss ACC versus 3-loss SEC, and the committee defers to the SEC, right? And so I think those issues, like the Miami thing, I know people somewhat anticipated it, but it did shock me. And it's disappointing. I'm not saying that Alabama can't compete if you put them in the playoff, but to say that Miami, has been one of the best teams in the country all year, you lose one game and it's over. That was pretty stunning to me. And I think the fact that Ward Manuel kind of came out and said such definitive things on Tuesday that the teams that aren't playing this weekend are locked in. I think he may regret saying that, because I think you've got to continue to evaluate the resumes. And even if you're not playing this weekend, the teams that you played against are. And so I'm super curious to see, does the ACC kind of end up with that nightmare scenario of could Miami and SMU both get knocked out if SMU loses? I think the ACC probably will be the topic of conversation on Sunday. I still think I know it's very frustrating to Brett Yormark. I still think the Big 12 can get the 4 seed, but certainly it's going to depend on how Boise plays and how the Big 12 game plays out. So curious to see how that goes. But yeah, the ACC, I think right now you're in a pretty uncomfortable position.
Max, why? One of the things they need to ask themselves is why are teams that aren't playing this week not in peril as much as teams that are playing this week?
Yeah, it's a good point. And as we go through this too, the thinking for the last few years has been, well, in order to get your team, your best team into the 4-team playoff, you want to have a 1 versus 2 in your conference title game. Guys, after going through this playoff, I kind of feel like we need to come back to the conversation around divisions. Don't you think? Like the leagues are so big now that it's not possible to play round robin, right? Like we can't achieve that. So, as we went through all these different tiebreaker scenarios, like I have to imagine these commissioners like should have that conversation again in the off season of like, can we find a way? I know that it's like geographically it's like stupid. Like there's not like a way to draw these up anymore that everyone's happy with, but I think that, if you could bring that back, I think that at least would hopefully kind of separate things a little bit better in terms of, our teams getting punished that get left out and stuff. But then again, you may just have some upsets like we saw, where the Big Ten West was always bad. So maybe that didn't really fix everything, but I certainly wonder that as this plays out.
Yeah, certainly. And look, they could adapt an NFL-type scheduling model, but divisions would at least ensure that the schedules would be somewhat on – like that's the thing is you can take any playoff-eligible team and make a case for them in or out based on the schedule because outside of a few teams, it's not like a lot of people have murderer's row, anymore when you look at the –
No, for sure. And now that we've done all this conference realignment, like it's probably not that surprising that we've ended up this year with – an SMU makes it this far, but didn't play the best teams in the conference, right? Iowa State didn't play all of the best teams in the conference, nor did Arizona State. So, it's just that's going to continue to happen because you're going to have uneven schedules and stuff, and how you account for that. I think that's you got to revisit it. But for now, let's just agree that the SEC schedules are harder than everyone's, and that's just the tiebreaker.
Yeah, well, I mean they seem to agree on that already. I think the only difference is, and the SEC doesn't want people to know this, is that they've come back to the pack a little bit more than maybe they expected in year one.
Well, whenever the good teams lose in the SEC, it's because the league's incredibly deep. So I mean, it's it's going to be. I mean, especially when I think you've got I think Ohio State and Oregon obviously are two teams that, and Penn State, I'd be interested to see can the Big Ten teams sort of dominate this playoff. I don't think that's impossible given the weaknesses that the SEC teams have shown. Texas had their one bad one against Georgia, but it have been pretty clean all year. But the rest of them, you kind of feel like they could make a run or they could lose the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Max Olson, ESPN.com. Max, Godspeed to you next week, sir.
Thanks, guys. Always good to talk to you.
There you go. Max Olson, ESPN.com, who he's going to have to get do you think he has a second cell phone for some of these
probably
things?
Be smart to. I know you always see Adam Schefter with his dueling cell phones, and I know others who
have
are
an
in the business
AFC and an NFC one, maybe?
Huh?
Maybe it's an AFC and an NFC one.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe so. That'd be probably the best way to keep track of it. But, yeah, I'm curious about the tease there from Max on what those names will be starting on Monday as the transfer portal starts to fully open its arms to all, who want to enter and see where that takes them. But some shockers, some surprises. Curious to see those blanks filled in and who that actually is. But Jackson Arnold, John Mateer. John Mateer's not official, obviously. They're trying to fight that off. But it kind of seems like all signs are pointing to him at least entertaining offers. Miller Moss, Connor Wegman. If you were to just go by recruiting, that's a pretty salty list right there. I mean, not Mateer. Mateer would be the least talked about amongst those guys, but the other three, have had a good bit of talk about them and a good bit of spotlight. So curious who joins them, just at quarterback, but elsewhere, all the other positions across the country. And it's not just guys who are maybe dissatisfied with playing time or maybe got benched like some of those quarterbacks I just mentioned, but guys who just want to make money. I mean, your big-time wide receiver who just produced 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, whatever, you may be really good where you are, but that doesn't mean there's not somebody from Miami or Oklahoma State that's not in your DMs. Oklahoma State probably not. They got a figure some things out first. But, somewhere else, Michigan State, that's in your DM saying, hey, would you like to add a 0 to whatever you're making right now, or, add a better number than the one you're making right now. There's a lot of that going on. So we'll see who that tempts to also potentially leave a good situation to go get in the portal and make some money. So there will be people of all kinds in there, and a lot of good players and a lot of big opportunities for teams to try and improve their rosters. And it's exciting and it's fun. It's also a little bit messy, but I'm very intrigued by what we see start to erupt over the weekend and into next week.
When we come back, we're going to break down the ACC and Big 12 title games and probably that Mountain West one that's also happening tonight. So we've got time to do that. And we'll continue to monitor the Mike Gundy, like in a standoff, in a duel. The Pokes are in a duel or, a draw. Like that's where they are right now, which is so on point. And I do have this image of like Pistol Pete actually on one side and Mike Gundy on the other. We wouldn't be Pistol Pete, right?
Pistol Pete would do that to Gundy. Been in it a long time together.
Yeah, man. Pistol Pete's like, listen, you guys do what you want to do, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
just hands over the gun.
The guy who's offering $13 million. You can go pull the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we'll dive into all that. This is 365 Sports.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House and unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu, and Texas Beef House hosting twice monthly live auctions, including one they just wrapped up, where you set the cost of what you want to pay for ribeyes and New York strip, fillets and flat iron, brisket, tri-tip, ground hamburger, hamburger patties, sausage links, and so much more. Look at their upcoming auctions. They just had one finish. And by the way, go to TexasBeefHouse.com for that. And then you'll see a pop-up screen that says Bid on Beef. That's their partner to run the live auctions. This has been a tremendous success, and it's changed the way people are buying their beef, whatever that kind of beef you want. TexasBeefHouse.com, TexasBeefHouse.com, live auctions where you get to go inside of a lot. There's usually 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 lots with specific product. Somebody sets the price, then you can outbid it, watch it. Somebody outbids you, you'll get a notification. If you win, you'll get a notification. It'll get to you very early on a couple of days after they ship, usually on Mondays. TexasBeefHouse.com in combination to Bid on Beef. Again, the best beef in Texas, your house, when you order from TexasBeefHouse.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. Smokey will be back on Monday. In fact, so excited he's taking an earlier flight to do so. That's how much he loves you. Has nothing to do with me and his son. He loves the people so much. He wants to get back into a show. But, yeah, he'll be back a little earlier. But, Craig, let's start with the Mountain West title game, since that one's tonight. UNLV gave Boise, of all the teams they played post-Oregon, UNLV gave Boise their biggest scare. And Barry Odom's been coaching it up really, really well. And it would be just heartbreaking for Boise State to get all this way with people giving him all this street cred and then losing the conference title game. And then now that conference doesn't have a sure path in.
Yeah, that would suck. That would be not fun. So that's what they're trying to avoid tonight. But it was a really good game in the first go-around in Las Vegas. Boise got the win by 5 points a few weeks back. A little after the midway point, and that was a really nice win at the time. The Rebs are hanging around there in the top 25. They've had a really good year as well, with just a couple of blips on the radar, including that one loss to Boise State and earlier loss to Syracuse, which we know Fran Brown's team has really had a nice turnaround. So 2 best teams meeting up in the championship game just like how you want it, and I think this ought to be one hell of a game. For Boise, though, yeah, the most rides on their side of the coin, not only a spot in the college football playoff, and before we even get to that, hey, how about winning the Mountain West? That's what you get tonight. Yeah, you get in the playoff as well, and there's other things that can come with that, but I do think the conference championships still matter, even though there's a debate about that mattering as much as it used to, but I do think it matters. And so winning the Mountain West tonight would be great. It would book you in the college football playoff, potentially with a first-round bye, and maybe it even gets you a Heisman Trophy, depending on what Ashton Jeanty does. So, yeah, there's a lot riding on this one tonight. I don't know how much different to expect this game to be stylistically than what we saw in the first go-round, because these two teams have not played in a little while, but, you kind of know what you're getting with Boise State. It's going to be a lot of Ashton Jeanty, And in that first game, they did a pretty good job of containing him for the most part. 128 yards on 33 carries. He rushed for less than 4 yards per carry, only had the 1 touchdown, had 3 receptions, but didn't go for but 11 yards, so you contained him. Boise only ran for 209 yards, which that's less than his average, I feel like, at this point throughout the season, and they could not throw the ball all that well. So, they threw the ball for a little over 200 yards, ran for 185, so that's less than Ashton Jeanty's average. So they didn't throw the ball that well, didn't run the ball that well. And I think that, Hajj Malik Williams has definitely been a great story in college football this year, given how that all started off with Matthew Sluka. And you talk about holding hostage, Matthew Sluka with the NIL decision earlier in the year, to see UNLV find their way here, and for Hajj Malik Williams to have had such a great season. And he had a pretty good game in that first go-round. It's just cool to see. I love this matchup. I think whoever wins, you're going to be happy for them. And at the same time, I can understand why a lot of people are pulling for Boise to go ahead and complete this bad boy and get themselves in the playoff and be the Cinderella team and maybe even the Cinderella Heisman winner.
Yeah, no, I think that, if they can – nobody's contained Ashton Jeanty yet. There have been teams who have done better than others. And UNLV was one of the ones who did maybe the best at it, but they still didn't really. So if they can contain him, if they can create some mistakes, then they can do this. Most of the time I don't – there's 2 rematches this weekend, And I'm kind of here for both of them. Usually, sometimes it's kind of boring. But, yeah, I'm here for that game tonight because I think it's going to be a really good one. And would love to see Boise State win. Would love to see UNLV win for Barry Odom. I mean, I think that, like, both those things would be huge. But, the Mountain West really wants to get a team in the playoff before, whatever happens to them happens, now that the Pac-12 thing is all going on, and they're going to be losing those teams. So we'll see what happens tonight, but I think it should be a pretty tight game because the last one was a pretty tight game.
I would imagine it's going to be probably one of the most watched Mountain West Conference Championship games ever because everybody's going to be watching for Boise State to see if they lose or not so that your team, Alabama, whoever, can get in. I mean, that's the teams that are trying to get into the back end here and are looking for any disruption possible. So we'll see what that would mean for UNLV if they were to get the win here. And I think, obviously they'd be the highest Group of 5 champ. Yeah, I think they would be. So, yeah, they're playing for a spot as well. So, this is a really fun game. 2 fun teams. Great first game. Ought to be a hell of a matchup tonight with so many things, as we pointed out, riding on the line this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, ACC title game, Craig. This is one that's very interesting. They've got a team that never even won the AAC before. SMU never won the AAC. And now here they are, first year of the ACC, and they've been the best team all year. In fact, undefeated in conference. Their only loss is to a Big 12 team in BYU, who, if I were BYU, again, I would just be standing outside going, like, why are we so much further behind Miami? Our resume is identical, if not maybe even a little bit better in certain spots. But I think, I don't know, like Clemson is a good version of Clemson. They're not a great version. Cade Klubnik's played way better this year. Garrett Riley's offense has been way better. They still don't really torch you in the passing game, but they make plays. Phil Maffa is a really good running back. Their offensive line is improved from a year ago. Their defense doesn't have any weak spots on it, but they're not, Clemson's had way better teams. This is not a team that I think is really scary by Clemson standards, but I do think they can put a charge into SMU, but SMU's just been so good and balanced all year long.
Yeah, they certainly could. I mean, this is a kind of a toss-up game in so many ways. I do think Cade Klubnik has been a great story. Didn't really know what to expect from him or didn't know how well he would bounce back this year from what has been kind of an up-and-down career there at Clemson, and he's performed really, really well. He's had some big-time games, and I think he's been one of their stronger parts of that team this season. So you love to see that for the young man from just down the way, down in the Austin area. But SMU is really good overall. I think that they've got a defense that probably doesn't get enough respect, and I think for a team that you really thought Preston Stone was going to be the quarterback for the majority of this year, to see Kevin Jennings take over early and then play the way that he's played, it's not like a beautiful thing every single game, but he's super productive. He's a guy who can make big things happen. I think he's been the right fit, and it's clear why they pivoted when they pivoted, because he just gets the job done better. And because of that, they have a really nicely well-rounded team. Yeah, this isn't Clemson, the dominators of old, but they are riding some momentum and had this spot in the championship game that was just, in some ways gifted to them a week ago. I mean, this was supposed to be Miami, right? So Clemson's got to be counting their lucky stars for this opportunity. And this is not the game I would have predicted in the preseason, Clemson-SMU. But here we are, and I'm looking forward to it. And if SMU wins this game, that's obviously a huge milestone for that program to be back in the quote-unquote power leagues and to win a potentially power championship would be a massive deal, especially in year number 1. And I think Rhett Lashley's a guy who's going to continue to get a lot of attention as the coaching carousel goes on, not just this year, but moving forward. Because, SMU's got a lot of money, but there are bigger schools, right? So I think he's a guy that's going to be the top of the coaching charts moving forward. But he's done a really good job there in Dallas. I think I lean SMU. I'd like them as more of a complete package this year, and I think I'm leaning their way as we roll into this weekend. So I know that would burn a lot of fans of college teams here in the state of Texas. It's been kind of an annoyance, a nagging sort of fly type thing that SMU's been having this success and kind of buzzing around every Big 12 Twitter thing that you see or playoff discussion that you see, but they've earned it, and they can really earn it tonight, really earn it this weekend with a win over Clemson. So, yeah, this is not what I expected, but I'm very much looking forward to this game.
Yeah. I am looking forward to it, too. I saw SMU play in person this year, and, while they were not playing the best team on their schedule, which at the beginning of the year, that's what they thought that game was going to be. But I came away impressed with how efficient they are and how they're just very well coached on both sides of the ball. Rhett Lashley, Scott Simons, the defensive coordinator, has that team a humming. They've overcome injury. Like, they lost R.J. Maryland weeks ago, and it hasn't affected their offense, and he was a big weapon for them. And so Kevin Jennings is 9-0 as the starting quarterback. I thought here's another thing you may never hear me say again, but I thought Jim Phillips made a great point the other day and said, we were told that the starting quarterback matters so much last year with Jordan Travis. Well, Kevin Jennings is 9-0 as the starter. Why are we having to win and we're in this thing?
I don't think they do, though.
You don't think they do?
I think they're both in.
I think they feel like they.
I mean, yeah, I think you have to feel that way, but I think it kind of looks like, barring them just getting their doors blown off, doesn't it feel like they're in already?
I think
it feels
so.
like every league's got both their teams in except for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Who has to fight for even their champion to feel like they actually have a spot, even though they will, but it just feels like you even have to put up a fight to put that forward, much less the runner-up. And I guess that's because your league just beat up on itself a bit more. But, yeah, I think every league feels like they have their teams in no matter win or loss. But you don't know for sure, to your point. So, yeah, you've got to make sure that you're in that field if you're SMU.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I'm picking SMU as well. I just think they're a better team. Clemson has not beaten any of the ranked teams they've played this year or the teams with winning. I mean, they just haven't, So lost to Louisville, lost to South Carolina, got their doors blown off by Georgia, And so I just think that this is not vintage Dabo here. And
it's not your typical Clemson powerhouse, and it hasn't been for a couple of years.
Yeah, but here's the thing: they're better than they were last year.
Sure,
they're a lot better than they were last year. Last year's Clemson team was just kind of awful, and at least this year he has a kicker that is a slightly more reliable, although not great in all of this. So, all right, let's get into the Big 12, Craig. This is we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but this game is so ridiculously – oh, no, we had to talk about the Big 10.
Yeah, it needs to be
Big 12. Sorry, I said Big 12. Big 10, Oregon and Penn State. Is there any bone in your body that thinks Penn State's going to win this game?
No, I mean, I would take Oregon. I think they're the better team. I think Penn State's been a fun team to watch at times, but I'm just not a huge believer in them. I do love Drew Aller as a player. I love to watch him, but I think Oregon's just a much better team, more battle-tested, more proven, and a bit more explosive. And I think it's really interesting, the whole storyline going around about all these first-year teams and their new conferences and making championship games. That is really interesting to see that, and cool to see that in so many ways, just kind of shake things up. But, yeah, I expect Oregon to win their first Big Ten championship, which feels weird coming out of my mouth. But that is where we are now. So, yeah, I like the Ducks here over the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I think Penn State might be able to get some shots in here, but I think ultimately, look, this is only the second really good team they've played all year long. And Oregon's kind of been in it. They've navigated a bit of a tougher schedule. While I don't think it's a murderer's row. Look, they had Boise State, who's in the hunt for the playoff. They beat Ohio State. They're the only team who hasn't lost a game this year, so that counts for something in this new era where that's going to be near impossible to do. If you make it all the way through undefeated, you're going to be one of the great teams of all time with those extra games. But Oregon, they're so much more dynamic to me. They've been in these kind of bigger games already. They did beat Illinois when they were ranked and handily, but the rest of their schedule a lot like Penn State's. They've had two legit scares early in the year against Boise State and then a couple weeks ago against Wisconsin. But, they're not all going to be winners, right? Or I guess they're winners, but they're not all going to be perfect. Michelangelo had some ugly paintings, I'm sure. And I just like Dan Lanning in this situation much more than I like James Franklin. James Franklin's a good coach. He's not a great coach. And Dan Lanning hasn't been great yet, but I think he has way more potential, and he's knocking on the door of being that.
Yeah, I like this Oregon here. I think Penn State continues to be the team that falls just short of the bigger picture goals. I do think they're a good team. I just like Oregon better. I think they're better in a lot of different categories. They're a hotter team right now, and as you said, they're undefeated. So I don't really debate too much on this in my head. It's pretty clear-cut, more clear-cut than probably any of the other conference championship games, actually. This is the one that's the clearest to me. So if I'm wrong on it, I'll be happy to eat that crow. But this one to me, like, I got to really sit and think about Georgia and Texas. I got to really sit and think about Iowa State and Arizona State. This one to me, it's just ding in my head. It's Oregon. So that's where I am.
Yeah. No, I'm with that. Let's take a break right here, come back, and let's see if there's anything else to report on Mike Gundy, because maybe in 15 minutes he won't be the coach at Oklahoma State anymore. Then in the 5 o'clock hour, we've got Josh Neighbors and Peyton Soysher in the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, General Manager CEO, David Gray, the manager of new car sales, and this is what they have. The Wagoneer Series 3. I told you the other day I saw this spectacular, crisp, clean, good-looking, long, white SUV. It was a Wagoneer Series 3, the Grand Wagoneer. And right now, the Wagoneer Series 3 and the Grand Wagoneer Series 3 with $15,000 off, or 3.9% financing for 72 months. Also, the 0.9% for 72 months continues on the 2024 Ram 1500. Sold down the inventory and only have a few of those left. One of them is a Black Widow Ram 1500 crew cab sitting on 37-inch wheels and tires. It is truly a beast of a truck and, of course, an award-winning Ram truck. Along with what they have with Jeep and more, the Rams, and if you want a pre-owned car, they've got a bunch of them. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with a Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak here with you, taking you through the end of Friday. And Craig, I wanted to just revisit Mike Gundy again before we get to Josh Neighbors and Peyton Soysher, but The interesting thing about taking his money to put towards NIL, and then, a lot of coaches have the reverse problem of, making sure their school has enough money for NIL. It looks like this is Mike Gundy, who said he doesn't like it, but I never thought he was resisting it that much. I just thought he was going to be like Dabo Sweeney. Dabo gets unfairly chastised for NIL. He's not really said anything about NIL. He may say he doesn't like it, but he hasn't stood in the way of anybody making money. He just doesn't go in the transfer portal. Mike Gundy doesn't like either of them all that much, but uses the transfer portal when he has to. But this not going in on NIL is a little bit weird in reverse, because usually the coaches are like, look, it's the way of the world. We don't have to like it. We got to get it. But he's maybe resisted a little bit.
Where does that come from? That he's resisted it?
I mean, if they're saying that they need a commitment, if Oklahoma State needs a commitment from him to go fully in on NIL, then that would tell me that he's not been fully in on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't see that line. There's a lot swirling out there about him right now, and a lot of it probably coming from Oklahoma State to paint him in a bad light. But, I mean, yeah, he has had comments in the past about NIL. He's clearly not that much of a fan of what it all means and what it all entails, and he's not alone in that, but it's the way of the world and the environment that he works in now. So you can be resistant to it like Dabo Sweeney, but eventually you've got to dabble in it just like everybody else if you want to be successful. I don't think any program's going to be able to resist NIL and the transfer portal and still be a top championship competing program. So if he's resistant to that, like that would seem to indicate, then I mean, he's just too stubborn for his own good, or maybe he's just a man with nothing to lose, and it's not a matter of holding on to his job. It's a matter of just sticking to his guns, and it's not something that he wants to mess with. And so if they don't like that, then that would be, I guess the cause that you could cite for wanting to make the change amongst maybe other reasons. But, yeah, he's definitely been resistant. I don't know, though, what all the actual details are. I can't imagine that he's dumb enough to say, well, I'm just not going to do it. The part that doesn't make any sense to me as far as the portal NIL talk and all of the stuff that's being thrown out there is how you're talking about taking his money that you agreed to in a contract that you helped come up with, and you're going to now take that from him under the threat of firing and then go use it towards NIL. So how much, so if you're going to, that to me just seems like a very messy situation. So if he doesn't like NIL or doesn't like dabbling that, I don't think he's going to be real thrilled with you taking his money to then go apply it to NIL. And then what say would he have in how that money is used for the players that would be on his team? So that to me feels like it would be a dam busting. And water's going to come rushing in, and they're going to have a big old cleanse there in Stillwater, where on the other side of things, they're going to have a brand new head coach and coaching staff, because that part of it just doesn't make any sense unless Gundy feels like, you know what, yeah, this is the best thing to do. But I don't see that. So, yeah, it's hard to tell what all is what in all of the noise right now. It's like the fog of war kind of, right, that you're dealing with all these different quotes and sources and whatnot. So I don't think it's any surprise that he might be a little bit resistant. I can't imagine, though, he would be, ready to lose his job over it. But if you start threatening to take his money to do something that he doesn't enjoy doing, then that seems like a formula for, yeah, you both going your separate ways here sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And I again, if on his side, if I switch over and all these things, I'd be like, you know what? If you don't want to let me do my job the way that I think is best,
right,
I'm willing to maybe adapt to some things. But
sure,
if you're doing this, if this is how it's going to be, because it's not going to stop. Once you kind of admit to okay, well, I'll do whatever you want, let me keep this job, then you've lost the autonomy that you used to have. It's not going back. Mike Gundy's not stupid. He knows that, which is why, he's smart to bristle at this. But look, if I can give a piece of advice to Oklahoma State right now, if you want to fire a dude, just fire him. Don't do all this crap. Don't make it look like, oh, it's on him. Because then it becomes this finger pointing thing. Just come out and go, look, we are 3-9. We don't feel like we have a coach that's invested in modern football enough that it's better that we part ways right now. We love everything he's ever done for this university. We're going to build a statue of him outside, provided he doesn't do anything creepy or weird. He's going to get all that stuff, but it's time for a change. And that's what you do, as opposed to trying to scapegoat the other party on either side. This only ends badly.
Well, and again, it could be Mike Gundy that's throwing all this out there to make them look bad, right? Could just as easily be that as they're throwing it out there to make him look bad.
Yeah.
It's probably likely that they're both doing it.
Yeah.
So it just makes it all messy. But I understand it from Oklahoma State's side of things. I understand feeling like you're just sort of spinning your tires, and everybody can cite all the winning seasons and the longevity and all of that, but you can also as easily cite that he's won a Big 12 championship. Mm-hmm. Dave Aranda's done that in like a quarter of the time. And he actually, has taken it just as far. So, and there's others that you could cite as well. I mean, Kenny Dillingham might do it in a single year, right? Kenny Dillingham might do it in 1 year. So that mark needs to be better. Now, there were reasons for that. Oklahoma, namely, was a big reason for why they only had the one. But you definitely feel like you have gotten a lot of juice out of the squeeze, but it's easy to see where Oklahoma State feels like they should still be getting even more, and how they've gotten, some good success, but they should have had better success at this point. And so what they're potentially leaving is, yes, a standard, but one that, others can come in and match, or you just need it to go to a different level. And the thing is, it's not going to go to a different level if you're not going to dabble in NIL and do all the transfer portal stuff, and if you're not willing to kind of change your ways about that. So, yeah, man, a school that kind of needs a breath of fresh air, and a coach who's been stubborn but around a really long time and had great success, and they are pointing fingers at each other, and we'll see where it ends up. But I can understand the Oklahoma State side of things for sure. No matter how much success he's had, it's just sometimes you need to make a change. You need to breathe some new life into the program. And as scary as the other side of it seems, because the grass isn't always greener, you know what you have with Mike Gundy now. Like, you know what you have there, and maybe you're just interested in seeing what else is out there, even at the risk of it maybe not being as good as what you've known for the last 20 years, but you still have to at least go and see, right? It's like staying in the job for forever because it's just safe, versus like taking that leap and trying something different and brand new. And I think Oklahoma State may be at that point where they're looking at the way the leaves are blowing and going, yeah, it's been cool, but there's so much more out there that we haven't accomplished. And if we're going to make a move, like in this situation, this time period, he's resistant to the way everything is moving at this point. This is the perfect storm and the perfect time to go ahead and go make that change and take that gamble. And I can see that from their perspective.
Well, and look, and Mike Gundy needs to be truthful with himself. If you don't want to be all in on everything that you have to do in modern college football, it's okay. Don't do it. Don't try and fight it. Like, I think that's what's going to undo coaches like him, is ultimately you're not going to, have the fight in you anymore, and you're not going to be able to fight it. And revenue sharing's coming. And if you're the coach who said, well, that should be good enough, you're going to fall. You're already falling behind anyway, And so, and look, the fact that taking money away from him to give to players, look, that was always going to happen. Like, that was coming for the coaches before it came for anybody else.
It's happened to a lot of schools already. Yeah. They've already done that. It's just not as public as this is.
Yeah.
Because clearly Mike Gundy's side probably leaked this out, that they're asking him to do that. And that's, again, why I'm not trying to get too into this side's right or that side's right. It's because they're both doing the same thing, and they're playing it out in the media and trying to make the other side look bad. Like, how could you ever fire Mike Gundy and all the success? Okay, you go point again to one Big 12 title. There's plenty of Oklahoma State fans that'll say, like, yeah, he's great. We've had our fill. We've tapped out. We've maximized what we're going to be able to do here, and he doesn't want to play by the rules of the game the way it's going to be played moving forward. Like, he's not going to do that and then go win a bunch of championships. Yeah. Like, it's going to be harder than ever to do that. So there is a fork in the road where he either is going to have to cave on some of the things he's been stubborn about, or they're just going to have to make a change. And it's not going to be nice and clean cut, unfortunately, but that's just the way of the world and the way this is all working itself out here very publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Josh Neighbors, College Countdown, and then Peyton Soysher, rankings right now and the top 5 in the 5 o'clock hour. This is 365 Sports.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation. At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Neighbors, College Countdown Podcast joins us now. And Josh, you did a solely Big 12 show for a very long time. And I know that that will give you certain feelings about things or biases or whatever, but I've always found you to be a pretty measured guy when it comes to who you pick on. But what do you think it is about the Big 12 that disgusts the playoff committee so much?
That's a great question. There's not the Southeastern Conference, maybe, right? They tend to enjoy the Southeastern Conference quite a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the idea that all the teams were pretty even and they weren't at the caliber of the SEC, and I think to some extent that is true. But I think that the preference is always going to go to the big brands, and I think that we saw that play out this year.
Well, so, it's not just the SEC; it's the Big Ten too, and they have a non-big brand in there that just happens to be a Big Ten team, but they don't play this week, and they just get to sit pretty, is where the Big 12 and the ACC have to white knuckle this thing out.
Yeah, well, I think particularly the ACC should be more upset, because I thought the Miami versus Alabama argument would be a bit more of a robust one. I don't think we got much of that playing out. We got a whole lot more people upset about South Carolina and Ole Miss not getting respect than we did about Miami, and I think Miami, aesthetically, I mean, because we're arguing over 11 versus 12, right, with the Miami versus Alabama thing. Where was the argument that Miami's more fun to watch and all of their games were close? Because this past month we saw Alabama get absolutely waxed by Oklahoma, 6-16, and I know Miami's resume is not as good. They didn't get as many opportunities, but they still have good wins on there, and they lost 2 games by a combined 9 points. So I thought there should have been a bit more consideration for the Canes than there was. And it was mostly just Ole Miss defensive line and South Carolina's playing well. And I'm where's the fight for Miami? And I thought Tom Fornelli on Cover 3 made a good point. He said that he thought Miami would either be ahead of all the SEC schools or behind all the SEC schools. And they're splitting the 9-3 SEC schools. And I actually thought it was a pretty interesting point. Yeah. Because I think if you think about the SEC in a certain way, that all those 9-3 SEC schools should probably be grouped together. And they had a Miami splitting them, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure if you felt the same way.
Oh yeah, I do. I think it's very I think everybody who's playing this week should be ranked ahead of everybody who's not. That's kind of how I feel. Like you're in the championship game, you should get some credit for that, but it doesn't seem to be that beneficial. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, again, trying to figure out this committee is really, really hard. I mean, like the last 2 years in particular have been, all right, let's see if there's like, is there an actual agenda here? And like, no, there's no agenda. And then you see like several separate agendas that have all been enacted. And you're like, well,
yeah, like kind of a big picture thing. And I learned this year on the radio show I worked on. We were predicting what Arkansas's record would be. And I said, hey, 6-6 would be a pretty big accomplishment for them. Then you get to 6-6 and you watch how it happens. And you're like, no, it's not that big of an accomplishment because they should have been better and they lost a bunch of really close games. And like you kind of understand how you feel about records and how you achieve records. And I don't mean to be like way too big picture, but I'll be honest, the College Football Playoff Committee is kind of a journey in self-exploration. And so like, while we're trying to figure out what their criteria are, I think they're also trying to figure out what their criteria are, right? Like they're all like, how do I feel about wins and losses and life itself? That's kind of how it appears to me now. And not there's anything wrong with that, but like, I think the more time that we spend trying to figure out, hey, what is their criteria, which we should try and do, because I think that'll impact scheduling down the line, and it'll impact how many conference games schedule, teams want to have and conferences want to have, and what kind of non-conference games they schedule and when they schedule them. So I don't think it's a wrong like question to have, but I do think it's kind of like almost this for the committee because it rotates and changes. Is it not a journey in self-exploration, into how you feel about wins and losses?
Yeah, I am very curious if they continue on this path, which if there's not a fourth SEC team in here, Greg Sankey is going to scream bloody murder. I mean, absolute bloody murder on that, which I think they should let him. And then he's going to say, well, this has got to be changed and blah, 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 all of these different things. But the real curious thing is whenever you get a bunch of people with separate agendas in a room and then two of them are kind of controlling it together, but then you turn those two against each other, that's where it's going to be interesting to me when it comes down to the Big Ten versus the SEC. Like one of them has to be the sacrificial lamb and they don't want it. Like they're then fighting with each other. That's what I'm looking forward to because it will happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen at some point, right? I mean, we lost it this year because the Big Ten was just so top heavy. And Indiana won enough games by a big margin that, their one loss, they were able to absorb. I think actually a lot of the same can be said for Penn State, right? Mm-hmm. Penn State won Penn State's toughest game. They end up losing because they can't score. But everybody else, they just kind of annihilated, and that they need to be in for that. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, we're going to see the Big Ten get Ohio State, get Penn State, get Oregon. Oregon's deserving of being obviously number one. I actually think you could argue even with a loss, Oregon might deserve to be number one. But yeah, I mean, I think the Big Ten, just because it was so top heavy, like there was none of this cannibalization argument. It's like, wow, what are you going to do when you play Nebraska? Then you play Iowa. And nobody was doing that, right? Yeah. It was like, you're the top four. It's kind of it. So yeah, there was none of that fight, but you're right, Paul. At some point that fight will happen.
Yeah, it absolutely will. So Josh, let's talk about the games this week and where you see them falling. Let's start with the Big Ten and Oregon and Penn State. I don't think anybody in the world is picking Penn State in this thing.
Yeah, which honestly, how much is Oregon? I guess Oregon wants to buy and whatnot. I guess they're fighting for that. But, I would give Penn State a shot because, how motivated is Oregon? I mean, Oregon's been the best team all season. Mm-hmm. They have to prove it one more time. But also, to your point, Penn State in their biggest game, it's been the big bugaboo against James Franklin is he can't win big games. And he continually did not win big games this year. So, what would change in the Big Ten championship game? Mm-hmm. But we have to question motivations. like James Franklin, their Penn State team. I think they win they beat Ole Miss right last year in the bowl game. So like, how motivated is Oregon? I think Penn State might see this as like the chance to make some kind of a statement as they go forward the playoff, right? I feel like Oregon's are kind of made their statement, but Dan Lanning, I mean, he has the ultimate stomp a hole in your you know what. So I would favor Oregon, and also, it feels like Andy Kotelnicki has done a great job with that Penn State offense, but he's had to get super creative, not because he's a creative guy, but at Kansas you had to get more creative because like you have to, and their defense wasn't very good, and so they had a lot of good offensive players, but they needed all that production. At Penn State, it's kind of been the same thing. Like, as much as Drew Hour's gotten better, that's not an awesome offense. And so he's had to be really, really good to kind of put them over the top. And I think he has been really, really good and put them over the top this year. But does that align when they play really good teams? I like to see that play out this weekend. Can Kotelnicki's offense out-scheme, out-execute what's been a fantastic Oregon defense?
All right, SEC, Texas and Georgia. These two teams played. Georgia kind of mopped the floor with Texas, even though they played really sloppy on offense. Carson Beck, that was this guy's the number one quarterback that we're talking about. What do we the roller coaster started for him. He's been playing really well lately, including late in the game against Georgia Tech last week. Does Georgia beat them again?
No. I think Texas makes the adjustments. I really do. Yeah, I mean, Georgia, their offense has looked a lot better. Carson Beck has played a lot better, and their offensive line's gotten healthier. But Texas's defense has really kicked it into another gear these last couple of weeks in particular. You saw what they did when they played the Arkansas offense, man. It was really it was an up. I mean, Arkansas, they got completely shut out. They had one nice drive like the entire game. Then you saw what they did against Texas A&M. I mean, really they kicked it into another gear once again. And I think that defense, they can bring pressure from different points. They can cover really well too. They take advantage of opportunities when it's given to them. And also, I don't think Georgia's defense has played fantastically. You saw what Georgia Tech did to them. Man, there are points to be had. There are points to be scored against this Georgia defense. They are not like the mean pass rush machine. I mean, they're not always pass rush machine. They're a bit more patient defense. They've always relied on their physicality and their speed. It's been always Georgia's calling card. But they can't cover in space quite like other Georgia defenses have covered in space. I think Arch Manning, this could be a game where they use him some because running quarterbacks, mobile quarterbacks have given Georgia's defense a lot of problems this year. Guys have really been able to use that, dual threat quarterbacks mostly, but they need to kind of allow some passing plays to be there for Arch Manning just to give that sort of the run of the pass. But I think he could have a good game. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I'm going with Texas just because it's hard to beat a team twice. Boise State and UNLV tonight. What do you got? Barry Odom. Let's just do it. Let's do it. I want to see, as a Missouri guy, I want to see Barry Odom have that full circle moment. It's hard to learn how to be a coach in the SEC. And it didn't go well for him. And he deserved to be fired because he couldn't recruit very well. And to see him go to Arkansas and really, man, Sam Pittman, some of his best years were with Barry Odom. I know Barry Odom's defenses weren't fantastic, but it feels like maybe Barry Odom was doing a whole lot more than just coaching the defense for Sam Pittman's teams. And then he goes to UNLV and he has 2 years of success. And he's got guys like Jalen Catalina who have had that long journey with him. They had that quarterback situation flip, and all the players are like, hey, this backup quarterback's actually better than a starter. And they're at this point. And, man, they were close last time. I think they get the job done this time against Boise. I think UNLV, we talked about Ashton Genty and Boise all year, and I think it's going to end up being UNLV who's in the college football playoff and not Boise. All right, SMU versus Clemson. Who you got? I think Clemson wins. Oh, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I think Clemson wins. I hate to say it. I don't want this to happen. I've got no desire to watch this happen, but I think you saw last week, like, Clemson was on the wrong side of a guy who I think is going to end up being I think Lenore Sellers has a chance to be probably the best South Carolina quarterback in of the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And that one run that he had where he just ran straight, then ran to the left, then ran back to the right. And I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. SMU doesn't have that kind of caliber of player. And Cade Klubnik It's an experience to watch him play. I'll tell you that. I mean, it is a roller coaster ride. But I feel like that Dabo voodoo, like, is just they win the ACC all the time. And I feel like that we're going to see 3 lost Clemson again. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think SMU should get in if they lose close. If they lose it all, they should be in, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to go with Clemson.
Okay, finally, let's talk Big 12. Iowa State, Arizona State. This is probably the most even matchup of every single one of them.
Yeah, so Iowa State, they've got 2 really good receivers, and Arizona State's passing defense is weak. And Iowa State struggles to stop the run, and Cam Scatterbo is awesome. Kenny Dillingham is a lunatic. We know Matt Campbell can also be a lunatic at times. You know what's crazy is, like, this hasn't felt like Iowa State had a pretty quiet 10-2. It feels like, and they've accomplished stuff before. This is their first 10-win season as a program. And it feels like it almost feels like Matt Campbell's done that before, but he hasn't. Nobody's done that before. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Matt Campbell continually accomplishes things at Iowa State that we have never seen before. So we have to, I think, acknowledge that and give him his flowers for that, because I don't feel like we are right now. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but this is the ultimate coin flip. I'm going to go with Iowa State.
Okay. Josh Neighbors, host of the College Countdown. Watch it, like it, subscribe to it, share it all over the internet. Share it like it's a cat meme.
Cat memes.
You know, like one of the, like.
You're such a dad, Paul. You're such a dad.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah,
44 and no. So it might not happen for me. Or maybe I have like
your dad age.
Yeah, you can't help it. Like I could easily step in and take over for someone.
You could.
Yeah, easily, like just tomorrow. Like, all right, here you go. Yeah. I could do that.
Could see it.
Yeah. Josh Neighbors, College Countdown. Next up, Peyton Sorsby of Rankings right now. This is 365 Sports.
Don't miss the best price deals during the wrap-up of year sales event at Allen Samuels. Save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new 2025 Rams. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, Ram trucks give you that first-class feel. Hurry in and shop our great selection in-store or online today. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning product. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Our communities are facing unprecedented times. At Boozer's Jewelers, we care about you and your family. If you're like me, your home has unwanted or unused jewelry lying around. They can have value, and that means we can turn that jewelry into instant cash. This is a great way to get the most value from your unwanted jewelry. At Boozer's Jewelers, we buy all kinds of unused jewelry. So give us a call and let us give you peace of mind and cash for your unwanted or unused jewelry.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Welcome in 365 Sports on your Friday. And Peyton Sorsby, who I've talked to several times this week, because he lets me know about the rankings and all that's going on there. At rankings right now, he's our chief rankings officer. And Peyton, I think the thing that is the bee in the bonnet of most of the country is Alabama, which cannot move if another team, no team that's not playing is going to jump Alabama. So it looks like right now, Big 12 champion is the one who jumps Alabama, and Miami would get bumped and not the other way around.
Yeah. For all those people who don't want Alabama in the college football playoff, I have really terrible news for you today. It seems like they're going to be in it. And we've run a bunch of what-if simulations, and we can go ahead and do that here as well.
Yeah.
But I was bummed because I wanted South Carolina, right? They just had the momentum the last couple of weeks. You flipped that LSU game earlier in the year, and I don't think it really is much of a discussion. They looked good against Clemson. They've proven their worth. When everyone said, okay, we don't really even need to expand out to 12, we kind of know who the good 4 teams are. I think this year you can make a really good argument that 12 or 13 could have made a legitimate run at a playoff contention. So, but yes, as of right now, it does seem like it's just going to be an Alabama college football playoff like we've known in years past.
Yeah. And can you run us through the justification of them versus Miami? Because I know that they're saying the 3 top 25 wins, but why don't the losses matter? Because 2 of their losses are to teams that are average, and one of them was a butt whooping.
Well, it's when it comes to rankings, from what I've learned after training these algorithms and trying to get the best feel for what's the most appropriate algorithm, is it's all about who you played and when you played them, right? So everything's about timing, which is why the Clemson thing is so interesting, right? Because if you look at timing, they're not looking that great right now. But Miami kind of fumbled that situation against Syracuse last weekend, and that exploited all these different things to happen, right? Where you have conference championships, and some of these teams really needed that extra game, and now they're not going to get it. But to your point of what does Miami have, or what does Alabama have over Miami, I just think it's a tougher strength of schedule. You just have to go into that. And we learned this a little bit about Florida State last year in the Florida State fiasco, which I know that you're very well aware of. Sometimes a win can be viewed as a loss. Now, on paper, it has a nice sharp W right next to it, but really everyone in the back of their head is saying, well, kinda. And that's where Miami was, if you think of the Virginia Tech game, if you think of the Cal Berkeley game. I think it was finally that situation where, oh no, we gave you your shot. You had it all in front of you. You just need to beat Syracuse and prove to us, the playoff committee, the fandom of college football, whatever you want to call it, you have your shot right now to prove that you belong in this conversation. And they couldn't pull it out, right? And they had a big lead against Syracuse, right, at the very beginning of that game. So I think it's just we gave you your opportunity and you didn't take advantage of it. And we know a historical program that will put up a really good fight because they've competed against some of these teams that are in the top 10, and we know they can hang. We don't want bad football on our program. So to me, which is why I would say, well, why wouldn't you put South Carolina in? Because their quarterback is electric right now, and their offense runs through people. So you don't know what you're really going to get with Alabama right now, especially with them losing to Oklahoma a couple weeks ago. You just don't know. So I don't know. I really think it comes down to Miami just doesn't have the strength of schedule that Alabama does. But in that case, if you're going to make that argument, then you might as well put South Carolina ahead of them as well. So I'm not 100% sure what the ideal logic is for why they came up with those ranking systems.
Yeah, it's strange. Like I just think that losses should mean something. And you said something into this, the bee in my bonnet. And I don't want to sound like we're always crapping on the SEC, but they're the ones who get the benefit of the doubt, is that we need to look at these things as a year-to-year basis.
Yes,
not on history, but you said a historical team, which is Alabama. That should not matter. Like, you should they should I think there should be a blind resume part of this thing.
I think you're 100% right. But people love to gravitate towards what makes them comfortable naturally. That's a human emotion. You want to feel comfortable with the decision. People feel comfortable seeing that Crimson A in the playoffs, regardless of what it is. Now, I 100% agree with everything that you've said, but it's just, it happened in that specific way. And it's just a little bit of a chaos theory that, that 11, 12, 13, 14, which is why rankings right now has been so much fun, is because you don't have to focus on those top four. You have to focus on so much more that's going on around, which is why, this Big 12 championship game, this ACC championship game, this Mountain West championship game can cause an enormous amount of chaos all in like a 4 ranking span that has everyone's eyes glued right to it.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be crazy. Now, the Big 10 championship only really affects seeding, correct?
Yes. And even so, me and you kind of joked about this off camera, but if I'm Oregon, I might consider actually not even playing my starting roster. What is the benefit? If they win, they're an automatic number 1. Everyone knows that. They're going to get the bye, right? And just how the rules are. Here's your worst case scenario. Maybe you think you can beat Penn State with your practice squad, right? You just say, these guys can't hang with us. Let's rest all of our starting players and throw our secondary roster at them. If we win, we just rested all of our best players and we have a bye. If we lose, all of our best players just got rested and now we have a playoff game in Eugene. What is the downside? I think if we're talking about like a risk assessment, this might be the ultimate idea. So to your question, yes. Big 12 is just going to be number 1 versus number 3, number 4. I don't think Penn State's going to drop that much if you lose to Oregon. Everyone loses to Oregon this year. So if I'm Oregon, I might consider, do we want to try and go back-to-back and double dip this and get a back-to-back bye week for our top players while the rest of the team has to run through this gauntlet and prove themselves? We don't need to prove anything. Let's just rest, right? Ohio State gets to rest this weekend. Is that a benefit? And then they're gonna have a home playoff game. It seems kind of nice. Like a championship game is a burden to some of these teams, including Oregon right now.
Yeah, they're never gonna go away because of the money, but there's gonna be some. And it's like if I'm the TV networks and somebody sits your starters in the championship game, I'm going to be pissed.
But what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I know.
They have the power. It's the same thing like we've seen in players in the past. McCaffrey, when he was at Stanford, saying, "I'm not playing in the Idaho Potato Bowl. Who cares? Yeah. I have an enormous career in the NFL." I wonder if we're going to see something like that, maybe not this year, but in the future when people are a little bit more comfortable and they understand what this format really is and be like, we don't have to win this game. And it might be kind of cool to play a playoff game in Eugene. So I don't know. It's an interesting scenario.
Yeah, it really, really, really is. What do you think ACC championship game-wise? I know you talked about this on one of our segments earlier this week for Triple Option, but if Clemson wins this game, which I actually don't think they will, I think they're a little bit overmatched when it comes to the efficiency of SMU, and they haven't beaten a ranked team all year, so why start tomorrow?
Why not? Why today? Which is probably why even more so why it will happen. But
well, exactly. But if Clemson wins, so Clemson would then be in the playoff because of where they're seated right now. That's probably the one. Is that the one scenario for Alabama where they keep SMU and Clemson goes in, and then you have whoever the Big 12 champ is that would push Alabama out?
Let's go to rankings right now and let's play around with this exact scenario. So this is where things get really fun. So this is where the projected rankings are right now. And for those who are new to rankings right now, we've trained machine learning algorithms on historical voting data from the playoff committee. So we know approximately where they're going to vote in different scenarios. So as of right now, this is what the rankings would look like. Not the seedings, but the rankings would look like given this outcome, which is ASU over Iowa State, and then Clemson losing to SMU, UNLV losing to Boise State. Let's play a really fun scenario here. Let's flip the outcomes of these games. Let's say Clemson wins 35-29. Let's say UNLV loses. Actually, we'll do 35-30 for the Boise State game. I think this game will actually be a little bit lower. Let's do 28-20. And we can play around with the Big 12. Let's just cause a little bit more chaos just to make it fun. Let's just flip it. 26-24. So now let's say we have a Clemson win, a UNLV win, which I hear no one talking about, by the way. They're a 3-point underdog. No, everyone's like, okay, so Boise State's going to have a bye. I don't think so. It's not that simple. And then Iowa State beating Arizona State, which essentially the ASU and Iowa State thing is kind of it's not going to make too much of a difference. But here we are in this scenario. And this is where things get fun. In this scenario, SMU drops down to 11. Now, why is that significant, right? And you have Miami up here at 10, okay? But we need to go through what the rules are for this playoff selection criteria, right? So Oregon would get a bye, Texas would get a bye, and then you need to look for, well, who's your ACC or who's the next conference champion on the board? It's Iowa State right here. Yeah. Miami's not a champion. SMU's not a champion. Iowa State gets a bye, right? And who's next? Clemson gets a bye. So Clemson at the number 14 ranking would get a bye in this thing.
Oh, that's going to make Lane so mad.
UNLV is only projected to move all the way up to 17 with a win against Boise State. Now, UNLV is guaranteed a spot in the playoff as well. So now Miami and SMU are both bumped out because of this ranking scenario and who gets automatic bids into this thing. It's strange. It's super. Clemson goes to 10. UNLV goes to 11. So, and you're not going to put Miami ahead of SMU, I don't think, right? So maybe SMU gets that final spot?
Yeah, that would...
Sorry. No, Iowa State. Iowa State moves to 10. Clemson moves to 11. UNLV moves to 12. Miami and SMU would be gone. If according to this logic, SMU losing, they might be completely out of this game. UNLV winning, Boise State is gone. They're automatically in. This is a very, very interesting situation, and just going to remind people what the actual Clemson over SMU, UNLV over Boise State, and Iowa State and Arizona State doesn't really matter. Just switch out Iowa State for ASU, and you get the same output essentially. But SMU has the most to lose out of all of this. If Clemson wins, you might see teams with a 14 ranking and with a 17 ranking, 16 ranking, both jumping a number 10. So being the 10th and 11th best ranked team in the country does not get you a playoff spot this year, which I think is going to upset a lot of people, especially the ACC, when they see something like this. I mean, and even the Big 12, just knowing that only one team can get in when they've had a great year overall, it's a very bizarre arrangement that could happen if that scenario goes down.
Yeah, that is wild. That is absolutely wild. If Georgia's protected no matter what. Texas beats them 27-3.
Everyone is protected except for SMU up through Alabama. Alabama is going to be in this thing, regardless. It's only the ACC champ and the Big 12 champ and the Mountain West champ. Those are that's 10, 11, 12 right there. Unless SMU wins, then they stay at wherever. We'll go ahead and reset that and go back. But SMU projected to move up to 6. So SMU might be playing for, depending on how the playoff committee wants to view this, if SMU makes a great or no, SMU is going to be a bye. They don't care that they're the 6th seed. So it's either a bye or you're out for SMU right now. But look at all of this. Indiana's in, Alabama's in. I've been playing around with this. Everyone up through Alabama is a lock except for SMU and Boise. If they lose, they're probably out.
Oh my gosh. I
don't think this was the intention of this playoff committee.
No, I don't think it was either. But now when you put agendas in there, then, or you have to have, you can't. Yeah, I do worry that they're listening to one guy, and his office is in Atlanta, and that's Greg Sankey, about, well, there should be this, and these are different than the others, when these would have been different than the others maybe a year ago, but this year they're really not. And the conferences are enormous. So you're going to have situations where, these numbers don't make sense in the way that they used to on wins and losses and strength of schedule, because, Indiana, and like Jamie Pollard has this point about Indiana, is that they're very protected, but I could say that, SMU not, being having more risk than them playing the game this week is silly, given that their schedule, the only thing that's better on their schedule is their loss to Ohio State, which wasn't really that close, because everything else, if you look at, take anybody's 11 games, other than the loss on either one of them, Ohio State's a better loss than BYU, but they have the same exact record in tough conferences. And then you look at the other 11 games, I could make an argument that SMU's schedule could be better.
Yes, you 1,000% can. And so I guess really the only thing is, historically, when a number 8 ranked team loses to a 17 ranked team, right? Mm-hmm. Which would be SMU losing to Clemson. Do we see them in the top 10 in that scenario? And how big is the punishment for losing a championship game? Because that's going to upset. Once again, we just talked about the Oregon situation of why would you play? Yeah. Why? We had that situation with the Big 12 a couple years ago where they didn't have a championship game, and it kept TCU out of being in the college football playoff.
Whoa, Garrett. Garrett, jump in with me here, Peyton. It didn't keep TCU out. It kept Baylor out.
Was it Baylor?
Yeah, yes. It was Baylor and TCU. So,
but there was a TCU year as well.
No, It was both of them. It kept both of them out. But I will die on this hill. And I'm not even a Baylor fan. Mm-mm. But Baylor lost to West Virginia. TCU lost to Baylor 61-58 that year. Okay?
Yeah.
It's very famous. And Bob Bowlesby and the powers that be in the Big 12 kind of said, well, TCU has a better loss than Baylor, so they would be the pick when the committee asked them. And the committee thought two things. One, if you're not going to pick a champion, we're not going to pick a champion. Right. So we're going to dock you for that. And two, saying that TCU's loss is better than Baylor's when TCU's loss is to Baylor, zonks it. That should be a zonk. Sure. Nope, no whammy. That's a whammy right there. Press your luck. That's it. So it shouldn't have mattered. And Baylor was sitting here going, well, we beat them. And they're like, yeah, but you then lost to West Virginia. They're like, yeah, but they didn't lose to anybody else. But they lost to us.
Well, I deeply regret bringing up TCU around you guys right now.
Oh, no. Hey, look, I have to live in this town, and I will die. And Art Briles was very mad about it and came off looking mad. And Gary Patterson, who lived mad. Lives mad. Lives mad. It was well, I'm going to take the high road. And you're like, oh, dude.
So to the original point that I'm trying to make here, will we see, I know there's a lot of money involved. Would we see in the future the Big 12 saying, no, I don't want to play in that? ACC saying, why should we have a championship game after what just happened to us?
Yeah.
We had arguably 2 teams in, right? Depending on the Miami situation, right? And if Boise State were to lose and whatever the case is, right? There's a million different combinations of this. You might see a conference be like, screw that. It just hurts us.
Yeah.
It puts one of our teams at risk of getting knocked out.
Yeah.
If the ACC didn't have a championship this weekend, SMU is crowned the champion.
Yeah.
You get a bye. Now they're going to be out. There's a probability of them getting knocked out. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Well, especially them getting knocked out when Georgia can't get knocked out.
Right.
Yeah. So Georgia can lose and still go.
Correct.
So that one doesn't mean anything to either school. But now this one means everything to both of them. That's not, it's not equitable.
No, I don't. I play around with rankings all day. I am sick in the head with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still can't explain to you what a ranking is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, right? Is 1 better than 2? Well, kinda. Like, you're not really saying that, but we came up with this order, and there is no continuous point thing that you can point at. It's just a number, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 25. It's just the weirdest thing that, there's punishment if you lose, but if you don't play, congratulations. Or if you lose and you're high enough, then that's fine. But SMU being at risk of losing to a 17 Clemson is the problem here. Because now you're saying, well, if Georgia loses to Texas, at least they lost to a high-quality team. Is Clemson a high-quality team? I don't know if anyone can answer that question right now. After what just happened in South Carolina, what's happened at Louisville, with their strength of schedule, who they've beaten this year is not impressive. You're putting yourself, you can only shoot yourself in the foot by playing this game.
Yeah. No, it's such a strange thing where, like, you have to do it. But, like, we don't want to now because we'll lose. We could lose, and then we're out of this. The benefit to us is playing an extra game and then not being in the playoff, as where Indiana just gets to sit there, right? Those teams Alabama just gets to sit there. They
get to rest. They get to prepare.
Yeah.
There's no reason. I don't want Oregon to play this game. I prove to the committee how ridiculous this is and say we hold the power here.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out. Peyton Soysher, rankingsrightnow.com. It's totally free to join, or you can buy a membership that will give you unlimited, which I think, look, we're going to start off with a free, and you can do several a day. And then you're going to be like, oh, man, I really have a lot of time on my hands. And then I promise you'll buy more. You'll do it because it's fun and you'll fall in a hole. And before I talked to you yesterday, I went through and did it, and it was kind of doom scrolling. I'm like, man, Alabama really, really did a number on this committee because of those wins where you're like, well, they're not playing and this team has to play to get in, and they don't have to play to get in. Why are we creating, shouldn't the people sweating it out this week be the ones who aren't playing? That's who should be sweating it out, not the ones who are. That's what they need to flip. And that's for all the conferences. That's not just SEC, the ones who are playing. If you're going to say, look, Penn State and Oregon are in, Georgia and Texas are in, well, let's have it equitable.
And one last quick thing. This year, it feels like an 11 team or a 12 or a 13 could make a legitimate run. I don't feel like we felt like that in years past. This year, it's felt different. This year, you can look at it, South Carolina, and be like, they could hurt somebody. So that's what makes it craziest about this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton Soysher, rankingsrightnow.com. The top 5 is next. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome in. Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by TexasBeefHouse.com. Every time there's an auction, use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. Transfer Fits, Volume 2. And yes, I promised to get to Micah Hudson. I know you might have seen some spittle there. I'm very excited. I'm just spitting with excitement as we get into the transfer portal this year. Unlike many people, I understand the transfer portal is a headache. I choose to embrace the joy of it and the chaos and go, all right, let's see where we can move these people around the board. Will it work? Will it be effective? Well, that's a case-by-case basis. Number 5. Caden Salter, quarterback from Liberty. I think maybe he missed the boat to go to Auburn and help Hugh Freeze out a little bit more, but I think he's going to go follow Hugh Freeze, who he had a couple great years under at Liberty, and go play at Auburn. Look, I know he didn't have the best year at Liberty this year, but he had a better year than Peyton Thorne did or any of the other quarterbacks at Auburn. Auburn does not have a quarterback on the roster that's going to be back next year. Now, they did sign Deuce Knight, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, to that class, but you need somebody to, fill the gap in. Caden Salter can come in and help Hugh Freeze get things straight, because if he has another year like he did this year and doesn't make a bowl again, he's going to get fired at Auburn, whether he has Deuce Knight, Cam Coleman, and all that. Plus, again, if you saw the A&M game, they've got weapons. They're just not very good at using them. Number 4. Trayvon Rudolph, wide receiver, Northern Illinois. This is 4,000 career total yards. Dynamic in the receiving game and the return game. You know who's missing that this year? The Georgia Bulldogs. Their wide receiver core, not dynamic. Not at all. And look, you lose Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, anybody's going to take a drop off, but there's really no one in that wide receiver core you're scared of. Now, they're effective. They're good, but is there a big-time playmaker, a game breaker, a burster? No, nobody like that. This guy he's trying to get to the next level. Decided last year to stay for another year at NIU. Did that, and now he's in the portal trying to cash in on what he's done at the G5 level, jumping up. I think this would be a great fit for Georgia and a real diamond in the rough for them, because they probably don't normally think about going to that route, but I think he fits very well. Number 3, safety, Cole Wisniewski from North Dakota State. This guy has Nebraska or Wisconsin, where he's from, written all over him. This is a big-time safety big dude, 6'2", 6'3", 215, just lays the lumber all across the field. And I don't know who the defensive coordinator is going to be at Nebraska just yet, but I do know Matt Rule very well, and I know what he likes, and he likes dudes like this, guys that deliver punishment fly to the ball, make tackles. That's what Cole Wisniewski is. Nebraska's actually made the list twice now for wide receiver Dan Key and for Cole Wisniewski because they just fits what their personality is. Number 2, Kevin Concepcion from NC State. Let's send him to the Big 12 and put him with Kansas State and Avery Johnson. Those running backs, Avery Johnson, his brother's going to go play there. They've got some really good talent, interesting talent at Kansas State. They're in the mix for him, and that's known. I think that'd be a great and fun fit for him as he tries to get to the next level. This dude is a badass. If you go back and watch 2023, he played great. They had quarterback nightmares all year long for the Wolfpack. Not reflective on KC here. He is quite the player, and you should watch him when you get a chance. Especially if he winds up for our Big 12 and Kansas State fans. If he winds up there, that's a boon for the Wildcats or anyone who winds up getting him. And number 1, as promised, Micah Hudson. Garrett, this is killing me.
Yeah, this is making me a little nauseous, man.
I racked my brain over, all right, you didn't really play that much at Texas Tech in an offense that throws the ball all over the place. You know, we don't know what's kind of going on there. You're a big-time 5-star recruit. You know, I know a lot of people say A&M. They'll say LSU. And maybe that's where he goes. I don't know. I don't know where he's going to go. But if I'm Micah Hudson, and I'm a young receiver who didn't play that much my freshman year, and I want to look on a place that's actually looking up with a quarterback who can actually help me and we can grow together, if I looked at every quarterback situation in the country and I said, who's got a quarterback with the biggest potential to be the next superstar? Hold on. Like, can you get me like a ginger ale after this? Because I'm very nauseous.
You're going to need one.
It is DJ Lagway in the University of Florida. It really is. It really is. It's hard for me to admit that. I don't want to say it out loud, but I think it shows a lot of personal growth that here I am suggesting a big-time transfer to the Florida Gators. Do I want him to go there? No. If he asked me, should I go there? I would probably not be able to say to his face, yes. That's why I'm recording this video. And Micah Hudson's not going to ask me. We've had him on the show a few times. He probably doesn't remember my name anymore. But he's not going to ask. But if he did ask, this version of me that's doing this video right now, that's in maybe a little bit of an emotional crisis because he's saying these things out loud, and his friends from Florida State will see it and go, what the hell, man? What's wrong with you? I just think if I'm a wide receiver, I'm a young guy, and I'm going to go play with a redshirt sophomore quarterback who's on his way up, or a true sophomore quarterback who I might have 2 years with, and we can kind of grow together. I mean, am I wrong, Garrett?
No, I mean, you could do a lot worse.
I mean,
it hurts my soul, but you're right.
Sometimes you have to admit things that you don't like. Brussels sprouts are good for you. Actually, Brussels sprouts are actually pretty good. You can cook them a lot of different ways. High fiber diet. Flossing is necessary. All these things. We don't like to do them, but we have to say it. I'm just saying that playing with DJ Lagway is a good thing. And I'm going to end this before I start vomiting on camera, because I can't believe I said it. But it should show you that I am truly an unbiased journalist who doesn't care about the slings and arrows and what people will say about him. It's hurting me. It's hurting me. It's hurting me. But I think it's a good idea. I really do. DJ Lagway, if you want to get the most potential out of a guy like Micah Hudson who has a ton of potential that's unrealized, that's where I would try and go. Play with the best possible quarterback you could, and to me, that's DJ Lagway. All right, that's going to do it for us. We hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy the championship games tonight and tomorrow. Should be an absolute blast. Crazy football weekend. We're back with you on Monday. Thanks for watching, everybody. Great football weekend ahead.